investment that I have carefully evaluated and calculated. In the future, it will be all about money. I can definitely earn back my investment. In the end, Qin Emo spoke loudly. It was clear that he was just making things up. However, his words reached the ears of the elderly in Qin family village, and they started to believe it. One by one, they murmured to themselves. So this was Xiaomo's plan. That's why he was building streets in our village. I thought he was wasting money, but it turns out this way. At that moment, the elderly in Qin family village began to realize something. They felt enlightened. Initially, they were ready to scold Qin Emo, but they couldn't help but hold back. For them, as long as the money isn't wasted, it's fine. According to Qin Emo, this is a business. This is about making money. The other elderly people might not believe it, but could they not believe Qin Mo's words? Not only did they realize this, but they also understood. Speaking of which, the elderly truly believed in Qin Emo unconditionally. If it were someone else saying what Qin Emo said, they would probably think he was just bragging. Real estate in the countryside? What nonsense. Take Zhou Zhonglin for example. Although Qin Emo said this, he had seen how Qin family village had developed. The construction sites were all under work. He believed that Qin Emo had money. However, despite all this, he still had his doubts about Qin Mo's words. He didn't deny that Qin Emo had money but still felt it was a bit unrealistic. The elderly, however, thought differently. They not only believed him, they were sure that Qin Emo could do well. Not only could he do well, but he would definitely make money. The reason for their belief was simple. Xiao Emo is capable. Since Xiao Emo said so, he must have the ability. Things that ordinary people can't do, Xiao Emo can definitely handle. How could they not believe it? Even now, these elderly folks remember how Qin Emo achieved his current success. He earned so much money from an investment of 200,000. What else could Qin Emo not accomplish? In their eyes, they didn't know anything about systems or whatever that might be. Qin Mo's achievements were all due to his own abilities. They certainly believed it. However, the elderly also had some concerns. Their worry was not about whether Qin Emo would succeed or not, but simply about their own children. Oh, it's good. But the investment is so huge. Does Xiao Emo have that much money? I don't know how much money Xiao Emo has to invest. I wonder if he has enough. He must not earn too little in the end. Although there were such concerns, the elderly did not voice them. Like most seniors, they refrained from interfering in the careers of the young. Besides not understanding, they were also worried that speaking too much might add to the young people's burdens. In such cases, the only piece of advice the elderly could give to the young was simply, work hard. You must put in more effort. We should be practical in what we do. Of course, at that moment, the elderly couldn't say such things to Qin Emo. The reason was simple. Did Qin Emo really need to hear that? At least at this moment, the elderly felt it was unnecessary. Seeing the expressions on their faces, Qin Emo knew he had successfully reassured them. For him, this was a huge relief. It was clear that he wouldn't be scolded for this. As for whether it was good to reassure the elderly, Qin Emo felt there was nothing wrong with it. For the elderly, alleviating their worries was the best service he could provide. At that moment, noticing the reactions of the elderly in Qin family village, a smile broke out on Qin Mo's face. In an instant, he changed the subject and introduced them to the elderly. By the way, let me introduce you. This is Dr. Zhou. We have a clinic in our activity center, and Dr. Zhou will be working here from now on. After a brief pause, Qin Emo continued, Dr. Zhou is impressive. He used to be a chief physician at a big hospital. Many people sought his treatment, but he was difficult to see. It took me a lot of effort to invite him over. When introducing Zhou Zhonglin, Qin Emo was quite flattering. Hearing Qin Mo's words, Zhou Zhonglin's face turned a bit red. The elderly, upon hearing this, were somewhat puzzled, thinking, oh, why did we get a doctor here? Wow, such an impressive doctor. Xiao Emo has brought a doctor to our village. However, following Qin Mo's lead, they eagerly chimed in. Oh, Dr. Zhou, welcome, welcome. So it's Dr. Zhou. Welcome to Qin family village. You're so impressive. It must have been hard to come all this way. Qin Fugue even slapped his thigh and exclaimed, oh, I thought he looked familiar. When I was sick before, I specifically tried to see Dr. Zhou, but he was too busy and I couldn't get an appointment. I can't believe Dr. Zhou is here with us now. Xiao Emo, you're really something. All these compliments made Zhou Zhonglin feel a bit embarrassed as he quickly replied. You're too kind, really too kind. It's not hard at all, not hard at all. I'm the one who is surprised to be in Qin family village. Zhou Zhonglin scratched his head as he spoke. With all the praise and warm welcomes, he felt a bit shy. While Zhou Zhonglin was speaking, San Yi quietly approached Qin Fugua and whispered, have you seen him for a consultation before? Is this doctor really that impressive? What exactly is a chief physician? Qin Fugua, with a warm gaze towards Zhou Zhonglin, tilted his head and quietly replied, I haven't seen him, and I don't really know what a chief physician is. San Yi looked at Qin Fugua in surprise, then why do you say that? Qin Fugua tilted his head and said, Xiao Emo said he is very impressive. Many people are queuing up to see him. So it turns out Qin Fugua just casually mentioned it without any basis. It wasn't true at all. This was just the politeness of a country person. As the saying goes, a flower sedan is carried by the crowd. Although Qin Fugua hadn't consulted Zhou Zhonglin, he was indeed invited by Qin Mo, who doesn't like to hear good things. Moreover, Zhou Zhonglin didn't suspect anything at all. He had indeed treated many patients before, and there were quite a few who couldn't get an appointment. Besides, even if it were false, who would expose themselves for no reason? After the warm welcome at Qin Family Village, Qin Mo brought Zhou Zhonglin's luggage down from the car and cheerfully said, "Dr. Zhou, let me show you to your accommodation. Don't worry, even though we are in the countryside, the food and lodging are excellent." Seeing Qin Mo carrying his luggage, Zhou Zhonglin hurriedly and politely insisted, "Oh, I can manage it myself. How can I let you carry my luggage, Mr. Qin?" Zhou Zhonglin was still clear about his position. He was now an employee under Qin Mo. Although Qin Mo was polite, and everyone in Qin Family Village was courteous, Zhou Zhonglin felt a bit embarrassed. However, he didn't consider himself that important to ask his boss to carry his suitcase. After all, he was in his 40s. It must be said that he understood one thing clearly: to know his place. This was certainly not wrong, which is why he quickly took his suitcase. Qin Mo smiled and didn't insist any further, leading Zhou Zhonglin to the upper floor of the activity center. Once upstairs, Qin Mo naturally said, "This is the dormitory. Each dormitory accommodates one person. Just pick one you like. Every room is basically the same. There are no differences in the dormitories at all, whether in decoration or other aspects. There are no distinctions in treatment." But that didn't mean the dormitories were inadequate. Zhou Zhonglin found an empty room and pushed the door open. Upon entering, he discovered that the dormitory was just like a hotel. Everything one would expect was fully equipped. Although he wouldn't say the decoration was luxurious, it certainly didn't look inferior to an ordinary hotel. The entire room was clean, and even the bedding was prepared. Air conditioning, a bathroom, and other amenities were all complete. There was even a small room that could serve as a tea room or study. Seeing this, Zhou Zhonglin couldn't help but exclaim, "The dormitory environment here is so good. To be honest, it's comparable to staying in a hotel." Hearing this, Qin Mo smiled and replied, "You're being too polite. It's just okay. After all, the conditions in our countryside can't compare to those in the cities." Qin Mo was indeed being modest. At this moment, Zhou Zhonglin was exceedingly satisfied. With such a good environment and convenient work conditions, the treatment provided by Qin Mo was exceptional. Where could one find such a good place? If there was one inconvenience, it might be that shopping seemed a bit inconvenient, considering it's the countryside. Going out for a stroll or shopping wasn't as easy. However, Zhou Zhonglin thought, with things being this good, what more could I ask for? He wasn't young anymore, and despite the inconveniences, he felt happy. The reason was simple. This way, he could earn and save money. If spending money was too convenient, wouldn't it be hard to save up? Moreover, it wasn't like there were no places to spend money. Zhou Zhonglin knew there was a supermarket nearby. If he needed to buy daily necessities, the supermarket could easily take care of that. Additionally, the streets in Kinjiakan were under construction. Zhou Zhonglin found Qin Mo's words somewhat unlikely, but at that moment, he couldn't help but think that if the streets were really built well and Kinjiakan became bustling, it would be perfect. To be honest, Zhou Zhonglin initially kept his thoughts to himself, but now he felt that if he could stay in Kinjiakan and witness its changes, that would be wonderful. In a moment, after handing the room key to Zhou Zhonglin, Qin Mo said, "Dr. Zhou, you can tidy up and take a break. I won't disturb you any longer. By the way, if you get hungry, the cafeteria downstairs has food available at any time. Just let them know what you want to eat." Hey, Mr. Qin. Take care. I'll see you off." Zhou Zhonglin quickly escorted Qin Mo to the elevator. As Qin Mo came down from upstairs, he saw the elderly still gathered as planned. Upon seeing Qin Mo, they quickly asked, "Is everything arranged? Have you settled in?" "Yes." Qin Mo nodded. "Little Mo, is this doctor you've invited going to stay with us?" Qin Mo smiled and said, "Yes. I plan to open a clinic in this activity center. If anyone has a headache or anything, we can directly call Dr. Zhou to check on us. That would be much more convenient." The elderly folks of Kinjiakan understood the situation, but after hearing Qin Mo's words, they still expressed their concerns. "Hiring a doctor, how much will that cost?" "Little Mo, look at how healthy everyone in our village is. Do we really need a doctor? Oh dear, how much will it cost to hire someone? Plus, you say their medical skills are so good, it doesn't seem necessary." The elderly are indeed quite concerned about money, especially in situations where it's clear that the doctors are invited for their convenience. Hearing this, Qin Mo chuckled and said, "It's not a lot of money. Besides, isn't it good to have doctors around? The key is peace of mind. If you have a headache or a cold, it's so convenient." After a pause, he continued, "Although you've had a checkup before, you're getting older. How can I not worry?" Upon hearing Qin Mo's words, the elderly sighed, realizing that he was thinking of their well-being. Qin Mo understood their concerns. He smiled again and said, "Moreover, I'm not losing out. If I open a clinic in our village, with such capable doctors around, don't you think people from neighboring villages will come here for treatment? Just like a supermarket. Wouldn't they come to buy things? If more people come for treatment, I'm sure I can make money. It's a win-win situation, right? Chin Mo was well aware of this. If it were only for the elderly, they might initially hesitate about spending money. But once they heard about the potential for profit, it made the elderly think that it might actually be a good idea. Suddenly, they were like, oh, it does seem like that. Surely someone will come for treatment, right? Can it really make money, Xiao Mo? Chin Mo laughed and replied, of course it can. The elderly sighed in relief. If that's the case, it sounds pretty good. Yes. Yes, this can be considered a business, and it's convenient for us too. Great, great, great. The old man said repeatedly, just as he finished speaking. The elderly couldn't help but ask, Xiao Mo, is that street really reliable? It won't lose money, right? Xiao Mo patted his chest and assured them. How could there be any doubt? Just wait and see. I've done all the assessments and planning. In fact, there's no need to spend much. Just the cost of building the houses will do. I even plan to bring the company headquarters to our village. Don't worry, our village is definitely going to prosper. The elderly believed him, their faces filled with anticipation as they listened to Chin Mo's description. Qin Tianrui saw that the elderly were completely entranced and couldn't help but murmur to Qin Fengchun, you know, why do they believe what Mo says is true? But when I speak honestly, I got beaten up yesterday. What is going on here? Qin Fengchun lovingly patted the hood of his car and casually replied. Could it be that you're just not good looking? Maybe the old folks don't like the look of you. Hearing this, Qin Tianrui's face darkened. Chapter 161. Turning the Tide. Goodness. This is turning the tide. The original Qin Fengchun was not like this at all. And Qin Tianrui could see that he was getting a bit carried away. The next moment, he said, little brother, you're getting a bit too confident. Say what you just said again. Qin Tianrui wrapped his arm around Qin Fengchun's neck, muttering to himself. When 34 just returned, you weren't like this at all. How is it that after such a short time, you're already talking like this? It seems that not teaching you a lesson won't work. After saying this, Qin Tianrui immediately started to mess with Qin Fengchun. He began to scratch him all over. Qin Fengchun's face changed. How could he withstand this? He couldn't help but shout. 34, help. The boss is going to get me. Save me, Grandma and Grandpa. His cries were truly pitiful, making anyone who didn't know the situation think something serious was happening. However, in reality, upon hearing Qin Fengchun's wails, the elderly couple couldn't help but laugh heartily. They reminisced about how long it had been since they saw such playful antics, and their faces showed a look of satisfaction. Of course, they still couldn't resist scolding the two. Look at you two, both so grown up, still making a fuss. All right, enough is enough. You're not kids anymore. Stop it. Listening to these words, Qin Tianrui and Qin Fengchun finally stopped their playful scuffle with giggles. As for Zhou Zhonglin, he definitely wasn't just coming to the Qin family village to receive a salary without doing anything. After adapting for just one day, he quickly got busy. He was completely hands-on with everything. While he had some knowledge about other things, he knew nothing about the clinic, including the medical equipment needed and the essential medicines. He didn't even know where to buy the medicine. Of course, the pharmacy didn't count. This was precisely why he was given this task right from the start. Not wanting to just take a salary for nothing, Zhou Zhonglin got to work immediately managing the clinic. From medical supplies to the clinic's facilities, from purchasing to installation, from pricing to consulting Qin Mo, and even recruiting assistant doctors and nurses, he was nonstop in action. Every now and then, Zhou Zhonglin would find Qin Mo, either through a phone call or by appearing right in front of him. President Qin, the clinic also needs some medical facilities. How much budget do we have? I'm planning to make some purchases. The cost doesn't matter, as long as they are usable. All right, let me make a list for you to see. Facing the list Zhou Zhonglin handed over, Qin Mo was surprised. What is crossed out here? Zhou Zhonglin replied with a smile. I wrote these down casually. They are all relatively expensive equipment. Some are for emergency use. I initially considered them, but since they are very costly and won't be used often, I crossed them out. As long as it can save lives when needed, right? Exactly. Qin Mo waved his hand and said, then buy them. It's not like we're short on money. Zhou Zhonglin originally planned to save some money, but after hearing what Qin Mo said, she became much more generous with her spending. Anything that could be equipped, like infusion pumps, analyzers, and biochemical instruments, she went ahead and got them all. Even ventilators and ECGs were purchased. The only large medical equipment that couldn't be easily provided was MRI machines. Otherwise, Qin Mo wouldn't have minded spending a bit of money on that. Just a few tens of millions, after all. It's not like it's impossible to come up with that amount. With these items in place, the health of the elderly in Qin family village would be much more assured for Qin Mo. If any unexpected situation arose, even if these devices were only used once, as long as they could save a life, it would all be worth it. Of course, it would be best if these things never had to be used. For everyone in Qin family village to be safe and sound would be a good thing for Qin Mo. However, even so, this small clinic in Qin family village could rival the health center in town. In fact, it even had some equipment that certain health centers didn't have. This resulted in the originally reserved space for the clinic being a bit insufficient. Fortunately, the activity center had enough space. With the expanded usable area, the issue was largely resolved. Naturally, spending money can also be a tiring job. Zhou Zhonglin, despite occasionally marveling at having such a generous boss, was extremely busy. Mr. Qin, I've hired 3 nurses. Their professional skills are quite good. Should we keep them all? Mr. Qin, here is the list of medications. Do you want to take a look? Do you have an idea of the costs? Mr. Qin, does this arrangement for the pharmacy look suitable to you? Mr. Qin, you can take a break. I can handle these things. Zhou Zhonglin was so busy that Qin Mo couldn't bear to watch any longer. With hiring and various tasks, the entire clinic was filled with her work. Thus, Qin Mo approached Zhou Zhonglin and said, Dr. Zhou, why don't you take a break? There's no rush. Don't wear yourself out. However, for Zhou Zhonglin, with such a good boss, such a high salary, and who never gave unreasonable orders, how could she possibly sit idle? Mr. Qin, you take a break. I'm fine. By the way, I'm going to the city to pick up a new accountant. Once she arrives, she can also help with the bookkeeping. That way, someone will handle the money collection. Hearing Zhou Zhonglin's words, Qin Mo felt a bit embarrassed. Well, this was all his responsibility. From the beginning, apart from providing the location, he hadn't done anything else for the clinic. He hadn't even thought about hiring an accountant or handling bookkeeping. It was all Zhou Zhonglin's hard work. After all, she was a chief physician. Now, she was worrying about these small matters. After a moment of awkwardness, as Zhou Zhonglin was about to leave, he quickly called out, You can take my car. Qin Mo hurriedly handed her the car keys and added, By the way, from now on, this car will be yours. He plans to buy another new car. What a joke. With Zhou Zhonglin's work attitude, it's really a bit unreasonable not to provide him with a car. Anyway, Qin Mo couldn't stand it. However, it was precisely because Zhou Zhonglin was busy that, after a week, the clinic in Qin Family Village officially opened. Chapter 162. Money that can't be earned. Less than a day after the clinic opened, people started coming. The visitors were mostly from the surrounding villages, and they were primarily elderly people. Qin Family Village has now become well known. The entire village now has large villas, and this news naturally attracts attention. Since the last time there was a performance, people from 10 miles around have developed a habit of coming to Qin Family Village. Even during the construction of the houses, many people came to supervise and see the progress. Once the houses were completed, the area outside Qin Family Village was filled with elderly people during the day. Various means of transportation were present: tricycles, bicycles, and even electric scooters. In fact, even before the clinic officially opened, people from the nearby villages already knew about it. Now that it has opened, how could they not come? To be honest, most elderly people have some underlying health issues. Those who are healthier occasionally suffer from headaches or toothaches. Originally, they would just endure it. But now that the clinic has opened, since they are already here, it would be unreasonable not to have a checkup. Suddenly, the newly opened clinic became bustling with activity. Interestingly, the elderly in Qin Family Village had previously criticized the clinic, saying it was a waste of money and that it shouldn't be established. However, after Qin Mo spoke up last time, everything changed with the clinic's opening. Now that they were here to see a doctor, they were all acquaintances, so it was natural for them to chat a bit. During their conversations, the elderly felt a sense of pride. Hey, they said we shouldn't open, but they did anyway. They say it's for our good. And they can also help us with our ailments. Look at this place. It's practically like a small hospital. Wow, Dr. Zhou is really impressive. When he was at the big hospital, he was someone you couldn't even see without spending a lot of money. We got him to come here at a great price. Let him take a good look at you. I tell you, if you couldn't get treated elsewhere, maybe it will work here. There's a clinic right at our doorstep now. It's so convenient for seeing a doctor. People always care about their reputation. The elderly couldn't help but boast a little in front of others. Although it was bragging, it was true that Zhou Zhonglin had the skills. The title of attending physician wasn't given for nothing. Some elderly people's ailments had indeed never been cured before. But when it came to what Zhou Zhonglin was skilled at, after taking the medicine, when the next day comes, people are pleasantly surprised. It actually works. Amazing. I have had this cough issue for a long time, but after just 2 doses here, I feel like I'm getting better. This medical skill is truly impressive. It's even better than large hospitals. And that's not all. The key point is that the treatment is affordable. Buying more medicine only costs a few dozen units of currency. And sometimes just a few units will do. There are even people who spend only 2 or 3 units to get their medicine. If you go to a large hospital, you still have to travel to the city, and spending more or less is still a concern. But here, although it's at the entrance of Qin Family Village, it's not far from several neighboring villages, so it feels just like being at your own doorstep, right? People from the surrounding villages are praising it. The elderly from Qin Family Village are really glowing with joy. They greet everyone with smiles. As Qin Tianrui puts it, this is the satisfaction from receiving compliments. In short, the compliments make the elderly very happy. As for this wording, Qin Mo finds it quite amusing. but I have to say it's very fitting. It's worth mentioning that on the very first day of the clinic's opening, Qin Mo received a system reward. Ding. The host is rewarded with the ability to understand the pharmacology of a special treatment for coronary heart disease. This reward left Qin Mo a bit stunned. Pharmacology? At first, he thought he was getting the actual medicine. He didn't expect it to be pharmacology. He almost didn't understand it, as Qin Mo isn't a medical professional. However, fortunately, in the next moment, he figured it out. The system didn't provide the medicine directly, but it did provide the pharmacology. The difference is that with the pharmacology provided by the system, he can create the medicine for treating coronary heart disease himself. Moreover, this medicine is exceptionally effective. According to the system, as long as he follows the system's guidelines to create the medicine, it can have extraordinary effects. It specifically targets coronary heart disease. To be honest, a single box of this medicine can completely cure coronary heart disease. It's simply miraculous. That said, while coronary heart disease is not as lethal as cancer, it is still a very serious condition, especially prevalent among the elderly. For this disease, mild cases require medication, while severe cases may need surgery. It can even lead to myocardial infarction. Even mild cases require lifelong medication. In short, this disease can truly be considered a killer for the elderly. What is even more frightening is that for some older individuals, even if they undergo surgery in a hospital, doctors may not recommend it. The reason is simple. They are afraid they won't be able to come off the operating table due to their age. But here with Qin Mo, it's straightforward. A single box of medicine can directly cure it. From now on, the elderly in Qin Family Village don't have to worry about this issue at all. Aside from this, Qin Mo is also thinking about sales. If a pharmaceutical company were established to produce and sell this medicine, it would be an endless source of income. Moreover, the pricing could be set as desired. If one were to be a bit more unscrupulous and weaken the drug's efficacy, a single box could turn into multiple treatment courses. It would still be regarded as a miracle drug, but the profits would be even greater. The idea of a pharmaceutical company intrigued Qin Mo. He definitely wanted to pursue this venture, but he felt there was no rush. He decided to wait a while and develop Qin Family Village further. By then, it would be entirely feasible to build a large facility in the village and establish the pharmaceutical company. Not only that, but I also have a smartphone operating system. That is a groundbreaking innovation. Once this is launched, claiming it could revolutionize the current mobile operating systems wouldn't be an exaggeration. For now, however, these plans are for later. The priority is to wait until the streets of Qin Family Village are built. The clinic had stabilized, and the next day, even more people arrived. By the third day, people from 10 miles around came, and by the fourth day, even those from farther villages showed up. This scene reminded Qin Mo of his childhood when his great-grandfather, a respected elder in Qin Family Village, was known for his medical skills. Many people would come to seek his help. Unfortunately, when Qin Mo was still young, his great-grandfather passed away, and such scenes disappeared from the village. But now, with the clinic, this vibrant atmosphere returned to Qin Family Village. Chapter 163, Better a Bustle Than a Lull. The lively atmosphere in Qin Family Village was heartwarming, no longer resembling its previous lifeless state. Of course, there were even more reasons to be happy ahead. Shortly after the clinic opened, the village supermarket completed its renovations and stocking. In no time, the supermarket began operations. At the very moment the supermarket opened, Qin Mo received a reward from the system. Ding! The host receives a reward for benefiting the villagers. Supermarket revenue, x 100. Wow, this reward was quite impressive. When Qin Mo first heard it, he almost doubted his own ears. With this reward, the supermarket's revenue would be multiplied by 100 in future calculations. To be honest, Qin Mo initially had no intention of making money from the supermarket. It was meant to serve the villagers conveniently and be large enough to reflect positively on the surrounding villages, making the elderly feel like the supermarket was profitable to ease their minds. However, he never expected such a reward. Calculating it out, if the supermarket's daily revenue was 100, with the reward, it would become 10,000 in Qin Mo's hands. What happened to the plan of not intending to make money? This is a must for making money. If this supermarket could have a daily revenue of 20 to 30,000, Qin Mo doesn't do anything and still earns several million a day. If the revenue increases a bit more, there will be no shortage of money. In the future, there will definitely be no lack of funds. Qin Mo breathed a sigh of relief. Even if there is a cash shortage, after a few days of saving, it would definitely be enough. Of course, the premise is that the supermarket's business has to pick up. Only then can Qin Mo earn more rewards and make more money. In fact, the supermarket's business couldn't be poor from the start. First, the items sold in Qin Mo's supermarket are not expensive. They are all reasonably priced. It wasn't he intended to make a big profit. With low prices, naturally, more people would come to buy. Second, with the clinic combined with the supermarket, those who need medical attention can come for treatment, and those who wouldn't have come otherwise might visit now. With the supermarket, Even those who don't need treatment can stroll around Qin Family Village. After seeing the doctor, they can conveniently shop at the supermarket, which means more people and more revenue. It can be said that these two factors combined create a great effect in attracting people. Before long, there were many vehicles at the entrance of Qin Family Village, resembling a bustling small town. It was a lively scene. Of course, with more people, other things would emerge. On the first day of the supermarket's opening, there wasn't much happening. However, the next morning, just as Qin Mo was about to head to the cafeteria for a meal, Qin Tianrui excitedly approached him and asked, "Do you want to eat some pancakes? My treat." Hearing this, Qin Mo was a bit surprised. "You're going to the town? What for?" To which Qin Tianrui replied, "What town? There's someone selling them right at the village entrance." Qin Mo then followed him to the entrance. Sure enough, a pancake vendor had set up shop there. They were busy, and quite a few people were buying. The elderly residents of Qin Family Village were there managing the business. As soon as the pancakes came out, the old man grabbed one and remarked, "Delicious. Freshly baked is the best, so tasty." The old man also loved pancakes. Previously, he had to go all the way to the town just to buy them. But now, he could enjoy them right there. To be honest, Qin Mo was quite surprised to see this scene. A pancake vendor had come to Qin Family Village. However, Qin Mo quickly noticed that there was more than just pancakes for sale. There was also someone selling sunflower seeds and snacks. Besides that, he saw an elderly woman coming over with a bag full of fresh vegetables. It was obvious they had just been picked from the field. She squatted down right there and started selling them. This really amused Qin Mo. Goodness, now even the elderly women are selling vegetables. It was truly a novelty. Just as she set up, the cafeteria's chef walked over. After greeting Qin Mo, he turned to the elderly lady and asked, "How much for this dish?" He almost forgot that there was a canteen in Qin Family Village. Selling vegetables here wouldn't be a problem at all. It's convenient for the canteen to buy vegetables. In fact, it's not just the canteen. Others who come to the supermarket, visit the clinic, or just stroll around would also stop by to ask about the business. There's even a construction site nearby, although it's not break time yet. When the workers do take their breaks or finish work, they will come over to buy something. Although it's just a small village, the market is surprisingly large. In no time, Qin Mo, munching on a baked cake, smiled at Qin Tianrui and said, "Isn't it lively now? Much better than before when it was so quiet." Qin Tianrui nodded sincerely. He liked it this way. When he was a kid, he wished he could live in town so he could at least buy something when he stepped out, unlike the countryside where it was inconvenient to get snacks. Back then, there wasn't even a small store in Qin Family Village, and buying something meant walking a long way. While chatting with Qin Tianrui, Qin Mo asked, "By the way, do you know where they're showing movies? Let us find one. If they could show a movie at the village entrance tonight, it would be lively." The workers from the construction site could also come and have some fun. Since the construction started, the workers hadn't left the site. They had already set up temporary housing not far away. Many workers usually live there, which is one of the reasons for the village's liveliness. Of course, compared to the city, Qin Family Village is still a bit dull. After all, people in the city can go out and have fun after work. But there's not much to do in Qin Family Village. Qin Mo had seen workers playing chess, chatting, and having fun several times. The elderly in Qin Family Village also didn't have many entertainment activities at night. There's an activity center, which has multimedia rooms and the like, but it's not fully set up yet. Sometimes, the elderly would chat with the workers out of boredom. Of course, the workers come from all over. Qin Mo didn't mind the elderly interacting with them, but he thought it was wise to be cautious. After all, one can know a person's face, but not their heart. It's hard to tell if someone might have bad intentions just because they see the village as prosperous. So, Qin Mo asked the security to be a bit more vigilant, not to prevent anything specifically, but just to keep an eye on the elderly, as they are older. Speaking of movies, Qin Mo thought it would be nice to show one. It would add some liveliness to the village even at night and help pass the time for the elderly and the workers. When Qin Mo mentioned movies, he immediately thought of the rural film projection team from his childhood, which was quite popular in nearby towns many years ago, rivaling the fame of today as stars and internet celebrities. Wherever the movie projection team went, news would spread naturally without the need for announcements. At that time, Qin Mo would often be led by Grandma Qi, bringing his own wooden chair early in the morning to secure the best spot in the village square while waiting. Nowadays, with the development of the times, every household has a television, making the existence of the movie projection team unnecessary, and it has gradually been phased out by society. However, Qin Mo still remembers the lively scene of everyone in the village sitting in the square, a joy that watching television at home could never compare to. Second brother, do you think we can get a set of movie equipment? Qin Mo thought about it and felt quite excited, turning to Qin Tianrui. Qin Tianrui was taken aback. You wouldn't be thinking of building a cinema right here, would you? That kind of project would take months. Qin Mo's previous bold actions had already led Qin Tianrui to think in exaggerated terms. A cinema will definitely be needed in the future, once the commercial street is done. How could it lack a shopping mall and a cinema? But I can't wait. I want to invite everyone to watch a movie tonight. Huh. Qin Tianrui was even more confused. You want to watch a movie tonight? Even a miracle worker couldn't conjure up a cinema that quickly. Seeing Qin Tianrui's bewildered expression, Qin Imo couldn't help but laugh. I meant the kind of movie projection team from our childhood. Do you know if there are any people or equipment like that nearby? The movie projection team? Qin Tianrui, having grown up in the village, immediately understood what Qin Imo meant. The movie projection teams had been obsolete for decades. But I actually know of an old team that is still in town. Really? Qin Mo's eyes lit up. Yes, it's a few people from the old projection team. After retiring, they opened a theater in the town, still using that old equipment. It has a unique charm. Bring them over. And I'll hire them at a high salary. With the significant profits from the supermarket, Qin Imo was now financially robust, able to spend boldly with millions in daily income. Got it. Qin Tianrui was equally excited, as the joy of waiting for the projection team in their childhood was about to be revived. In just 2 hours, Qin Tianrui returned with the people and equipment from the town. Qin Mo personally oversaw the work, watching as the 3 experienced masters set up the screen at the village entrance. As soon as the old film projector was taken out of the bag, Qin Imo knew it was going to be a good experience. Second brother, go tell third grandpa and grandma to come over. Qin Imo called out to Qin Tianrui, who immediately ran off to inform the elderly. The first ones to hear the news quickly spread the word. Soon, the village elders arrived with wooden chairs and benches. At this point, the 3 masters were ready, and they couldn't help but feel nostalgic looking at the eager crowd. This was pretty much what their peak professional days had looked like. The movie soon began, a classic version of Dream of the Red Chamber. Just a few minutes into the screening, Grandma too started to tear up. Qin Imo was startled and hurried over to ask, "Little Imo, it's nothing. I'm just crying because I'm so happy. You don't know, when the projection team was coming to our village to show Dream of the Red Chamber, I twisted my ankle and couldn't compete with others. I thought about not going, but my husband insisted on carrying me there. So I watched for half an hour on his back, which exhausted him." Grandma's husband, Grandpa Air, passed away many years ago, and Qin Imo knew that Grandma was feeling sentimental, not knowing how to comfort her. Nearby, Qin Guofu heard this and came over with a laugh. "Haha, Auntie, do you know what Uncle Air told me back then? He said he first met you when the projection team came. At that time, you wore your prettiest clothes to catch his attention. That old man is talking nonsense." Auntie stopped crying upon hearing this, scolding. "It was clearly he who asked me out under the pretext of the movie screening." Qin Guofu continued. "Auntie, just say you wore your prettiest clothes to the event. And that's it." Auntie, in her 80s, remembered her youthful feelings and blushed, grabbing a stool to hit Qin Guofu. Qin Guofu laughed and dodged, but was caught by Grandma Qi beside him. "You little rascal, still teasing your aunt? How disrespectful." Grandma Qi tapped Qin Guofu on the head. Although he was the village secretary, he was no different from a child in front of her. "Don't think I've forgotten. Back when Tunnel Warfare was playing, you climbed a tree so you wouldn't miss the plot, and ended up peeing on me. Grandma Qi, let us not bring that up." Qin Guofu's face turned green upon hearing this. He had long erased such embarrassing memories, and Grandma Qi's reminder made him feel like he could dig up a whole apartment with his toes. The elderly folks around laughed at Qin Guofu's reaction. He seized one of his peers and retaliated. "You, Lao Lu, dare to laugh, while everyone else was there to watch the movie. You were smart enough to bring a bundle of sugarcane from home and made a fortune." At that time, the arrival of the projection team was a grand event, with countless stories and life details that could not be counted. Many elderly folks, young at the time, dressed up to sit close to their crushes, and many children played around in the crowd. The chatter quickly pulled Annie out of her sad memories. Qin Imo listened to the elders and exchanged glances with Qin Tianrui, who understood and ran to the village to bring out peanuts and sunflower seeds for Qin Imo. Qin Imo transformed into a child selling snacks, shouting, "Come here. Peanuts for $10 a handful, sunflower seeds for 20. Haha. You, Qin Imo, are learning from Lao Lu to be a businessman? Give me half a pound of peanuts. But I want to pay. And give me half a pound of sunflower seeds. The money is still not coming." Several elderly folks shouted, and Qin Imo laughed heartily. He wasn't really trying to make money. After calling out a couple of times, he willingly distributed the snacks. A movie screening filled with laughter and chatter created an atmosphere that even modern cinemas couldn't compare to. This was the joy of the rural folks. Ding. The host rewards the villagers, helping them regain happy memories, and receives a monetary reward of 100,000 yuan. Chapter 165. Planning a snack street. The movie quickly came to an end, leaving everyone wanting more. Uncle Guofu sighed. Time flies during these happy moments. I haven't even finished my sunflower seeds, and the Dream of the Red Chamber movie is already over. Others felt similarly reluctant to leave, but they began to tidy up the chairs and tables. Qin Imo, observing everyone's reactions, couldn't help but laugh. Uncle Guofu, third uncle, Granny Qi, wait a moment. Are you all mistaken? This isn't just a movie screening that will leave right after. I specifically invited this crew for you. You can watch for as long as you want. Uncle Guofu was taken aback, and several elderly folks nearby also began to realize. Indeed, in their era, movie crews would leave right after screening, and it was a rare occasion to have them stick around. But today was different. Today, it was a screening crew that Qin Mo had paid for. In other words, they were the sponsors of the screening crew. How could I forget this? Let us get everyone another show. Yes, let us have another one. The crowd shouted, and the uncles operating the equipment looked excited too. They hadn't seen such a lively scene since their professional peak decades ago, and the sense of accomplishment filled them up. Don't worry, it's all prepared. Let us screen a film about the founding of the nation. This movie was relatively new, and most villagers from Qin Family Village hadn't seen it. They quickly became engrossed in the plot, and the snacks in their hands disappeared rapidly. Sitting next to third uncle, Qin Mo noticed that third uncle kept reaching into his pocket, but couldn't find a single peanut. His eyes were glued to the screen, unwilling to miss any exciting scenes, which left him a bit displeased. Qin Mo quickly handed over the remaining 10 or so sunflower seeds he had. Third uncle turned around, seeing the seeds Qin Mo offered, and quickly retreated. Little Mo, you eat them. I can't take these. I've had plenty already. Just a few seeds. What is there to be polite about? Third uncle. Qin Mo smiled, and third uncle finally accepted them. He liked to have something to munch on while watching movies. And with the seeds, his expression brightened. However, Qin Mo felt a pang of sadness. He thought about how city folks could easily find a variety of snacks outside cinemas, while the villagers of Qin Family Village couldn't even find a few peanuts. How could this be acceptable? Qin Mo immediately started contemplating a solution. I need to set up a snack street to complement this. The operational logic of a snack street isn't complicated, as long as there's foot traffic and space. Vendors will naturally come. Now that Qin Mo planned to screen movies here every so often, there would definitely be enough people, and the timing could be predicted. Vendors could simply set up when the movies were showing and start earning, so there was no reason for them not to come. With this thought in mind, Qin Mo decided to take action. That very night, after the movie screening ended, he shared his idea with Qin Tianrui. Qin Tianrui was taken aback for a moment. This was indeed a good idea, but if they knew you set up a snack street just so they could enjoy some treats while watching movies, wouldn't they talk about it for days on end? Over the past few days, Qin Tianrui had experienced the intensity of the old folks nagging. Whenever Qin Mo spent money in a way they didn't approve, the elders would take turns lecturing him, and Qin Tianrui would inevitably get scolded alongside him. Earlier, Granny Qi had reminded him that as the second brother, he should keep an eye on Qin Mo to prevent him from spending money frivolously. Yes, that was indeed a problem. Qin Mo pondered for a moment, and then quickly had an idea. It was simple. He leaned in and whispered a few words into Qin Tianrui's ear, and Qin Tianrui's eyes instantly lit up. Could this really work? Don't worry. You know our village elders well. They are quite simple-minded. Qin Mo chuckled. The next morning, the elderly villagers woke up to a commotion at the village entrance. After washing up, they arrived at the entrance to see that the construction team responsible for the activity center had sent a crew to set up a street. Xiaomo, what is going on here? Qin Guofu was a bit out of the loop. As the village head, he should have known the situation best. But now it seemed that Qin Mo was the one truly leading the charge. I'm planning to create a snack street here, Qin Mo stated directly. Yesterday, when everyone was watching the movie here, didn't they feel like the peanuts and sunflower seeds were in short supply? And having to run home to get water was quite a hassle. Huh. Qin Guofu was confused. Xiaomo, you can't make money like this. Everyone was happy watching the movie. We could just prepare some snacks and drinks in advance next time, right? Yes, kid, money should be spent wisely. You haven't even married yet, and you don't have kids. Saving money is the right path. Granny Qi, don't agree with this. Even if you set up a snack stall, I won't buy anything. I won't even watch the movie. Exactly, if you waste money on this snack street. Then I won't watch the movie either. Several elderly villagers were immediately fired up. They didn't genuinely want to oppose Qin Mo. They just felt it was unnecessary. They could understand the need for a laundry room, a water tower, and streetlights since those were essential for living. But building a street just for snacks seemed too extravagant. Qin Mo and Qin Tianrui had already anticipated this scene and exchanged a knowing smile. Qin Mo then said, Granny Qi, I haven't finished my explanation. This isn't a waste of money. It's a way to make money. Make money? Granny Qi was taken aback for a moment. Whose money are you planning to make? You're not thinking of taking advantage of us moviegoers, are you? We don't have much to spare. Haha. Qin Mo laughed out loud. Of course, I'm not trying to take your money. He stepped forward to help Granny Qi to a cool spot to sit down. Then slowly explained, I wonder if you've heard of the concept of attracting investment? I understand about attracting investment. Qin Guofu chimed in. The town is always promoting it, trying to get businesses from big cities to come here to open shops or factories to boost the local economy. Qin Mo was so impressed with Uncle Guofu's comedic timing that he wanted to give him a thumbs up. Seventh grandma, you heard that? Uncle Guofu is sharper this time. I'm building a snack street here, And those vendors coming in to sell snacks will have to pay me rent, right? So this isn't wasting money, it's making money. After a pause, Chin Mo continued, and I want to involve everyone. Those with spare cash can invest a little, and when the snack street is up and running, everyone can share in the profits. Soon, this grand venture was wrapped up, and the elderly folks were excitedly discussing the film's content, quickly flocking to Chin Mo's side. Xiao Mo, your spending is worth it, they exclaimed. Can we invest too? Ever since the village initially pooled together 20,000 for Chin Mo, he had been consistently contributing to the village without asking for money again. Now, with Chin Mo inviting them to invest, the elderly were even more thrilled. Xiao Mo, are you short on funds? One asked. I could scrape together some of my savings to show you. How much do you still need? I've got a few thousand. And if that's not enough, I can sell my old tea set. Someone in town offered 8,000 for it before. Chin Mo listened to their enthusiastic offers, feeling both amused and exasperated. He certainly wouldn't touch the elderly's savings. You all misunderstood. It's not that I lack money. I want everyone to get involved so that when we make money, we can share the profits. This was a scheme Chin Mo had come up with during a chat with Qin Tianrui the previous day, during his time in the village. He had been trying to improve the lives of the elderly, but they seemed so used to being frugal that they wouldn't spend even when they had money. After giving them good rice, oil, and clothes, he witnessed many elderly folks hiding these gifts, claiming they would wait until the new year to use them, which Chin Mo thought was unnecessary. Life in Qin family village should be as joyful as a festival. The frugality in the village had been a long-standing habit, and Chin Mo pondered that to help everyone truly enjoy life, he needed to give them confidence. This confidence came from cash flow, essentially seeing money coming in. Would someone who earns 500 every day feel guilty about spending 50 on a meal? Thus, Chin Mo thought about turning the snack street into a collective asset for the village, allowing everyone to share in the profits. He added, this snack street will use the collective land of the village. I will invest 60% in the construction, while the land will account for 40% of the shares. Once it's built, and we start making money, we'll split it 60-40. This pitch was something Chin Mo had prepared in advance. He didn't want to take the majority for himself, but he knew that if people realized he was genuinely trying to share money with them, most would likely resist accepting it. Xiao Mo, what are you talking about? The collective land is also yours, right? What do we need shares for if we don't understand how to run it? Upon hearing that Chin Mo was not wasting money but planning to make it, the crowd had no objections and even urged him to take the land for his use. Chin Mo smiled and said, I'm also a villager, and I naturally have a share of the 40 equity in this land. However, we can't just take it for free. Our village needs to start modernizing and attracting investments. Everyone should know how the county town developed, right? It's by leasing rural land to outside businesses, and the village collects rent while the businesses operate. My snack street is just a pilot project, and there are many more potential projects in the future. Qin Guofu, as the village secretary, was quite knowledgeable and became energized upon hearing this. Xiao Mo, are you saying that we can lease out these idle lands in Qin family village or operate them as equity, gradually transforming it into something like the county town? Of course, our goal is not just to match the county town. We can aim to be like Konglu village in the provincial capital, becoming a symbol of industry. Konglu village in the provincial capital is indeed a remarkable urban village, which initially attracted businesses to build factories and trade by utilizing a large amount of idle land. Over time, a unique business circle formed, and now when people mention clothing production, they naturally think of Konglu village. Konglu village in the provincial capital? I heard that every household there can receive tens of thousands during the new year, not just tens of thousands. A few years ago, a girl from the neighboring village married into that area, and I heard her family of 6 made over $1 million in a year. The elderly villagers of Qin family village chatted excitedly, imagining a bright future if they could effectively utilize their idle land. Qin Guofu immediately decided, all right, whether the land in the village is for self-use or for commercial cooperation, I'll leave it to you, Xiao Mo, to handle from now on. With this hope, the villagers became enthusiastic about the construction of the snack street. Every morning, people would come to the construction site to supervise. Song Qingfeng, the renovation company's manager, could only smile wryly. Oh dear, a few of you old gentlemen and ladies, rest assured, how could I deceive Mr. Qin and cut corners? Well, that is hard to say. Xiao Mo is still young and lacks social experience. Us old men should keep an eye on things, said the third uncle with an air of authority. Song Qingfeng couldn't help but chuckle at this. How could Qin Mo be lacking in social experience? In Song Qingfeng's eyes, Qin Mo's confidence and decisiveness in every move surpassed even the most carefully trained second-generation rich kids in the city. Moreover, with Qin Mo's impressive track record of making money, Song Qingfeng had never regarded him as a naive youth. In this day and age, there's a saying that holds true everywhere: making money is hard. If Qin Mo could do so well in such a challenging endeavor, he couldn't possibly be an easy person to fool. In fact, Song Qingfeng secretly held Qin Mo in higher regard than several city partners. Why? Because Qin Mo earned money and knew to give back to his hometown. A young man who could win the hearts of all the village elders was undoubtedly a commercial partner worth collaborating with deeply. Alright, if you enjoy supervising, go ahead and watch, just don't tire yourselves out, or Mr. Qin might turn against me. Song Qingfeng had already instructed the workers to adhere to the highest standards, so he naturally wasn't worried about any mistakes being caught. Building a snack street is not difficult. After 2 weeks, a long street lined with 2 rows of shops has been completed. Song Qingfeng has even installed transparent glass on top of the street, ensuring that rain will not affect business operations. With the snack street established, the next step is to attract tenants and maintain foot traffic, which has already been arranged by Qin Mo. For the first batch of vendors, Qin Mo directly involved the elderly villagers, who brought unique agricultural products and snacks, turning the construction workers from the nearby site into the first customers. In the evening, when movies were screened, the situation flipped. The savvy workers from the construction team had already informed their families, bringing in a batch of marinated meats, pickled dishes, sunflower seeds, and popcorn from the city to sell to the villagers gathered to watch the films. Business quickly took off, establishing a solid framework. News of this reached people from the nearby town, who hurried over to check it out. They were surprised to find that Kanjiakan now had over 100 workers living and working on-site, and there was even a movie screening team attracting crowds in the evenings. Moreover, thanks to the initial free trial stalls set up by Qin Mo, people from neighboring villages learned of the developments. Many items that previously required a trip to the town market were now available in Kanjiakan, making it unnecessary for them to travel further. With workers, villagers from Kanjiakan, and people from the nearby villages, a substantial consumer base was formed, creating a bustling atmosphere around the snack street, both in the morning and evening. Smart merchants in the county town quickly caught wind of the situation and rushed over to inquire about leasing shop spaces on the snack street. In this first phase of renting, Qin Mo did not rush to maximize profits, collecting only a portion of what he expected the vendors to earn. With over 100 construction workers and the consumption from villagers and nearby areas, the snack street's revenue was expected to exceed 100,000 in a month, making it easy for Qin Mo to take out 2,000 to 3,000 in rent. Some spaces were even kept for mobile stalls, available for the elderly villagers to use for free, allowing them to sell their agricultural products during harvest time, a privilege akin to a collective land share for the village. Wow, how is it so easy for this kid to make money? Just by setting up a street in our little village. He can collect 2,000 to 3,000 in rent a month? The villagers, including Grandma Chi and Uncle San, were astonished by their own words. Most of them had lived off meager government assistance for years, barely scraping by. They had even managed to split a single steel plate to survive, supporting Qin Mo with the initial 20,000. Now, the rent from the snack street was more than enough to sustain this group of elderly folks. However, they cautioned against being overly optimistic. With the construction workers currently on site, there was a demand for food and services, but once the project was completed, consumer spending would likely decrease. Not only that, but the total investment in this street by Xiao Mo is also unknown. It's estimated that it will take several years to recoup the 200,000 to 300,000. Qin Mo didn't show the detailed accounts to the elderly, so they calculated based on their expectations, thinking that the cost for Qin Mo to develop this street was in the hundreds of thousands. In reality, Qin Mo had Song Qingfeng build it according to urban standards, and the 2-week project cost over $1 million. At this rate of rental income, when could they possibly earn it back? But Qin Mo was not worried at all. He didn't care about the initial investment amount. The key was that the villagers knew the monthly rent for this street could reach tens of thousands. With this cash flow comparison, everyone wouldn't be so stingy with their spending. As for the funding during construction, Qin Mo had the system to support him. Ding. The host gives back to the villagers by creating a snack street that balances enjoyment and income, obtaining the property rights for Hengshi 2nd Street in Donyang City. Upon hearing the notification, Qin Mo's eyes widened in surprise. What was this? Property rights for Hengshi 2nd Street? Qin Mo didn't immediately understand what this reward meant. He quickly took out his phone to check. Hengshi 2nd Street in Donyang City. Oh my, this is a residential street. What does it mean to give me the property rights for this street? Could it be? Qin Mo's heart raced. The phone showed that the price per square meter on Hengshi 2nd Street was over 20,000. If the system meant that it had transferred the property rights for the entire street to him, with 11 buildings and over 500 units. Qin Mo calculated and felt a bit dizzy. Even though he had experienced the system's astonishing rewards multiple times, this one was still shocking. It was worth at least billions. The scale of this reward was so enormous that the system would take some time to complete all the necessary procedures. While waiting, Qin Mo felt incredibly pleased. Not only did he create a fixed income with a snack street for everyone, but the initial investment of over $1 million also received a 100-fold return from the system. I benefit everyone, and the system benefits me. Qin Imo walked along the village path, his steps buoyant as if he could almost fly. With the help of the new construction team brought in by Song Qing Feng, the Qin Family Village Activity Center was finally completed before the new year. Initially, Qin Imo had hidden this from the elders, saying it was a new house for the family, but now that it was finished, he couldn't keep up the ruse. Fortunately, he had built a new set of apartments next to the activity center, or else Granny Qi and the others would have certainly raised a fuss. With the center completed, the next step was to install various equipment. First, there were the essential resting furniture. Sofas had to be genuine leather to ensure warmth in winter and coolness in summer, allowing the villagers to sit comfortably. If they couldn't even sit comfortably, they surely wouldn't come. Blankets and pillows also needed to be prepared, so if the elders felt tired, they could simply lie down on the sofa for a nap, avoiding the hassle of going home for a midday rest. The restrooms were definitely equipped with sitting toilets, as it would be troublesome for the elderly to squat down and get back up. By the way, the ventilation and air conditioning need to be set up properly. We can't have the elderly feeling hot and cold in the restroom, which might give them a cold. As for dining, the team of Chinese chefs can still be those from Wangjia village, but we need to add some fresh elements and bring in a few Western chefs. Qin Imo was listing things one by one while Qin Tianrui took notes, becoming a bit dazed as he listened. Is this really an activity center for the elderly? Why does it feel like it's leaning towards a club for young models? Hey, you're not thinking about hiring a few ladies in Chi Pao as staff, are you? Qin Tianrui casually joked, and to his surprise, Qin Imo's eyes lit up at that. You just reminded me, with just the two of us young folks, we can't take care of everyone. We need to hire a few staff members. Qin Tianrui was stunned. Xiao Imo, have you gained some magical abilities? With your extravagant club setup, Uncle San and Uncle Guofu would definitely have no objections, but the aunties will surely have something to say. What are you thinking, second brother? I'm looking to hire professional caregivers. If the elderly have any minor health issues, they need proper care. Qin Tianrui's face flushed. He had genuinely thought Qin Imo was planning to bring in a few ladies in Chi Pao to serve Uncle San and the others. Qin Tianrui quickly wrote down Qin Mo's requirements, filling up an A4 sheet. This list is a bit large, huh? Qin Tianrui glanced over it, realizing it might cost upwards of $1 million. Second brother, I leave this to you. Don't rush, but do it quickly. The villagers must enjoy it before the new year. Leave it to me? Qin Tianrui paused, but when he looked up, he saw Qin Mo's expectant gaze. $1 million order could yield quite a profit if managed well. Qin Imo had this in mind. He wanted to provide systematic benefits for the villagers. But second brother couldn't work for free. Giving Qin Tianrui cars and houses every now and then wasn't a proper income. So, whether Qin Tianrui took a cut from this deal or not was secondary. What mattered was that he could build his connections as the operator. A few big orders like this would be enough for the city merchants to remember Qin Tianrui. Once he had connections in the town and city, Qin Tianrui's path would naturally broaden. Second brother, I will need your help with many things in the future. So you need to be mentally prepared to handle things on your own, Qin Imo said earnestly. Qin Tianrui understood the implications and replied seriously, don't worry. I will definitely handle this properly. Qin Tianrui knew that with the bond between him and Qin Imo, even if he wanted to take it easy, Qin Imo would still look after him. But he was also a man and naturally cherished the opportunity to prove himself. Chapter 168. Luxury Furniture. Qin Tianrui drove straight to Danyang City and quickly arranged everything. He scheduled all the merchants to deliver goods to Kanjiakan at the same time in 3 days. And then he went to the labor market to hire 5 or 6 professional nurses who had training in caregiving, as well as 2 chefs skilled in Western cuisine. 3 days later, a fleet of large trucks drove into Kanjiakan. The villagers were startled by the sound of the trucks, and the elderly rushed out. What is going on now? My goodness, that truck is huge. Did they move a few elephants over? Not elephants, but some furniture. Aren't they preparing to decorate the new house for Xiao Imo? Qin Fengyu and Zhang Tingting were also watching from the side. They already knew that Qin Tianrui's new house was just a minor detail. The real highlight was the activity center next door. However, the older folks were still in the dark. Grandma Qi chuckled upon hearing Qin Fengyu's words. So it was furniture that Xiao Imo bought. With his current abilities, he should indeed decorate his new place nicely. Xiao Mo's new house is quite impressive. Not only in Qin Family Village, but even in the surrounding areas and the county, it ranks among the best. Once Xiao Imo finishes setting up this big house, he should start looking for a wife. We in Qin Family Village are all looking forward to Xiao Imo starting a family. Xiao Mo's new house is quite grand. After the framework was built, the exterior wall was directly covered with glass curtain walls, which reflect light, just like an office building in the city. It's one of the top places in the countryside. The workers on the truck quickly started working under Qin Tianrui's direction, unloading exquisite mahogany furniture and genuine leather sofas from the truck. Then several workers carried them towards the activity center. Wrong way, wrong way. This furniture is for Xiao Mo's new home. Right, the building next door is Xiao Mo's new home. The activity center doesn't need such nice things. I can tell just by looking that this sofa is solid mahogany, worth tens of thousands for a set. The workers chuckled and replied without much thought. Tens of thousands? This is all high-end solid wood. This set costs over 300,000. Over 300,000? The elderly folks gasped in shock, even feeling a bit of pain in their teeth. A set of furniture costs over 300,000. And that's just for the wooden furniture. What about the genuine leather sofas? This is the new furniture Xiao Mo bought. With his capabilities, what's there to worry about? Qin Guofu has come to terms with it now. He already bought a helicopter, so what's the big deal about a set of solid wood furniture? He pointed to the nearby building and said, "You all move it over there. The activity center is just for us old folks to use. It doesn't need any decoration." Huh. The workers were taken aback. But the order we received was to supply the activity center. Just then, Qin Tianrui rushed over and realized something was wrong upon hearing the workers' words. He quickly said, "Hey, are you here to work or chat? Why are you so talkative? Just hurry up and move the stuff inside." The workers were puzzled but didn't dare to respond further. If this order worth over 1 million fell through, the boss might fire them on the spot. The elderly folks saw Qin Tianrui instructing the workers to move the expensive furniture into the center, and their expressions turned suspicious again. "Xiao Rui, what is going on? The activity center doesn't need such expensive furniture." "Exactly. Just a few ping-pong tables and some TVs would be enough for us to have some fun." "Xiao Rui, don't tell me this is all Xiao Mo's money again. That kid is already a handful. As his older brother, you should keep a closer eye on him. The solid wood furniture costing hundreds of thousands is something that the elderly feel might shorten their lives just by sitting on it. For them, who are already at the end of their lives, it's not worth wasting young people's money." Qin Tianrui immediately broke into a cold sweat. If he said something wrong, those elderly folks would probably nag him for days. Fortunately, at this moment, Qin Mo finally came to the rescue. Seeing the pleading look in Qin Tianrui's eyes, Qin Mo couldn't help but smile. His second brother still hadn't mastered the art of handling the elderly. Qin Mo stepped forward and cheerfully said, "Uncle Guofu, Grandma Qi. Uncle San, this worker is just here to move the goods and doesn't know the details. Actually, this batch of furniture was acquired through my second brother's connections. It's a great deal." "A great deal?" Uncle Qin Guofu and the others looked skeptical. The merchants in Danyang are not fools. This ISNTA discount, it's practically a slash at the ankles. Grandma Zhu Yui, looking quite upset, said, "Do you really think we're children to be fooled? I may not have used solid wood furniture, but I've seen plenty. A few years ago, my relatives in the city got a set that wasn't as nice as this one, and it cost over 100,000. Grandma, please don't get agitated. This is all true. Why would I lie to you?" Qin Mo had prepared his script and continued, "You don't know? My second brother has made quite a few connections in Danyang recently, including with furniture makers. They have several old styles of furniture that just won't sell, and they're losing thousands a month on storage fees, so they decided to half sell, half give them to my brother." Old styles. The elderly looked back at the furniture displayed in the activity center, which looked quite appealing. "How is this old? It looks beautiful." Qin Mo laughed and said, "If you think it's beautiful, that just means it's old-fashioned. The young folks in the city don't like these styles anymore. Is there really such a saying?" Grandma Zhu Yui was taken aback, and Uncle Qin Guofu and the others were also unsure. They moved closer to examine the furniture, touching it carefully. After some investigation, they found themselves liking it more and more. "You know, I really do like this solid wood furniture the more I look at it. Little Mo, can I sit on it?" "Of course you can sit on it. My brother got it for you to use," Qin Mo said, giving Qin Tianrui a knowing glance. Qin Tianrui, not being foolish, seized the moment and added, "Exactly. I guess that these old styles that young people don't like, you all would definitely appreciate. And didn't we get it at a great price?" He pretended to be casual, but even if it was at a discounted price, it still cost 20 to 30,000 per set. Nowadays, just renting a small food stall can bring in several thousand a month. So the price of 20 to 30,000 per set was much more acceptable for the elderly. After trying out the solid wood furniture, they moved on to experience the genuine leather sofa, and they were reluctant to leave. "Oh my goodness, what kind of broken chairs have I been sitting on for decades? This sofa is way too comfortable." The comfort of the leather sofa was something that the villagers of Qin Family Village had never experienced before. Once they sat on it, they immediately recognized the difference. "No one can fight me for this sofa. I'm going to claim this armrest spot for good." Uncle San leaned back against the sofa, with one hand resting on the armrest and one leg crossed over the other, looking very comfortable as if he wouldn't trade this spot for anything. "You old man, are you still being stubborn? Come and give it a try," said Uncle Wu beside him, poking at him with his cane, but Uncle San completely ignored him, making Uncle Wu so angry he almost swore. Chapter 169. Michelin Western Cuisine. Don't rush. Don't rush. There's more than one set ordered," Qin Mo said with a wry smile, stepping in to mediate to prevent the two old men from starting a fight, while Qin Tianrui ran outside to instruct the workers to speed up. Soon, several sets of furniture were neatly arranged in the hall. And with only a few people in the Qin family village, everyone had a place to sit. Once the furniture was set up, it was time for the gym equipment, appliances, and bathroom fixtures. The elderly folks watched as items were moved in and installed, their previously relaxed vigilance rising again. Xiaomo, don't tell me these are all discounted old models. Oh, these are all defective products, and they are only sold at a fraction of the price. Half sold and half given by friends. Defective products? What is wrong with this ping pong table? It has uneven legs, with a 0.1 centimeter error. Don't underestimate this small error. It can't be sold on the market. Is that true? What about this toilet? It has a heating feature? The heating feature has a problem. It can only reach 40 degrees, which is considered a functional defect in the market. The elderly folks listened to Qin Mo's explanations. And then they saw the activity center being completed at a visible speed. Once several trucks finished unloading and left, the activity center, which was still empty in the morning, was now fully equipped. This isn't just an activity center. It could be lived in. Xiaomo, just tell Uncle Guofu the truth. How much did you spend? When I went to the city for a meeting, the gym at the hotel wasn't even this extravagant. Uncle Guofu, being the village secretary, had some exposure to the outside world, but he had never seen such an extravagant activity center for the elderly. Uncle Guofu, don't worry about the money. Let us take a stroll and see if anything is still lacking. Qin Mo blinked, and Uncle Guofu understood. This kid must have invested a lot to create this activity center for the elders of Qin family village. Sigh. Uncle Guofu didn't know what to say. Qin Mo had already set everything up with good intentions. What good would it do to have Grandma Qi and the others nag him? Having a kid like you in Qin family village is truly a blessing for us old folks. Uncle Guofu praised him and didn't dwell on it anymore, leading everyone to wander around the activity center. With all the new fitness equipment and appliances, everyone was having a great time. Even Uncle San spent over 10 minutes in the bathroom, coming out with a radiant face. Kid, this toilet even has a spray function. It scared me. I thought I saw a ghost. Haha, this is the latest flushing toilet. Isn't it refreshing? Qin Tianrui teased as he approached. Get lost, you little brat. Don't be so improper. Uncle San's face turned red. He almost got blasted by the water jet. After experiencing everything, no one wanted to leave. Everything here was far better than at home. As the sky was about to darken, the elder finally sighed and got up from the comfortable sofa. Unfortunately, there was no food here, and he had to go home to cook. Wait a moment, there are arrangements already. Qin Mo called out to the elderly, who were preparing to leave. At this point, everyone had begun to catch a whiff of a delicious aroma wafting through the air. What is that? It smells so good. Seafood. The third elder, with a keen sense of smell, sniffed like a little dog and identified the scent as seafood. Their village, being inland, rarely had access to seafood, let alone river delicacies. Come on, follow me to the dining area. There's a dining area? Everyone was taken aback as they followed Qin Mo out of the activity center and into a nearby annex building. This was a dining area specifically designed by Qin Mo, separate from the main house, to prevent the smell from disturbing those resting in the activity area. As they entered the annex, the enticing aroma intensified. Most of the villagers had never experienced such a smell before, and their appetites were instantly piqued. What kind of seafood is this? It smells incredible. Qin Mo smiled proudly, thinking that maintaining the suspense was enough for now. He led everyone into the dining room, where they were greeted by plates of massive Boston lobsters and king crabs, alongside some top-quality steaks, all prepared in a Western culinary style. 3 professional chefs in uniforms were busy working in the open kitchen, and the delicious aroma emanated from their hot griddles. What kind of shrimp is this? It's enormous. And this crab is bigger than my head. Little Mo, why did you set up a Western restaurant? We're not used to this. Don't worry, the dishes have been tailored to suit everyone's taste. And these chefs are all professionals. Qin Tianrui, standing beside Qin Mo, reassured them, having been briefed on these details by Qin Mo beforehand. With delicious food in front of them, the elderly couldn't hold back any longer. The tender meat of the Boston lobster melted in their mouths, complemented by unique sauces, making everyone's eyes light up. The king crab, weighing nearly half a person, was even more enticing, as the chefs had already removed the shells for the elderly, allowing them to eat without any utensils. Oh my, this aroma. The meat is so tender. How can such a large piece be so soft? Second uncle. This beef is amazing. It melts in your mouth. The villagers of Qin family village had never experienced Michelin-level Western cuisine, and once they started, they couldn't stop, indulging in a feast. Meanwhile, Qin Mo's ears were filled with the sound of system reward notifications. Ding. Host rewards the villagers, improving the activity center's facilities, and receives a piece of Imperial Green Jade Raw Stone. Ding. Host rewards the villagers, bringing them a 5-star Western dining experience, and receives property on Hengshi 2nd Street in Donyang City. Listening to the continuous system notifications, Qin Mo didn't rush to check them. At this moment, the joyful smiles on the faces of the elderly were far more fulfilling to him than any system reward. He didn't disturb everyone during the meal and walked outside with Qin Tianrui, saying, "Second brother, you did a great job with this. But the seafood has too much purine and we can't have it this early every day. You should hire a nutritionist as a consultant later to see how we can arrange the meals at our activity center to make them healthy and delicious." Understood. Qin Tianrui nodded, turning back to look at the elderly people in the restaurant who were enjoying their meal, unable to suppress a smile. Xiaomo, I'm starting to feel like I want to grow old. Isn't the elderly life in Qin Family Village a bit too wonderful? This is just the beginning. The good life of the villagers in Qin Family Village has just started. Second brother, if you want to retire, you'll have to hold on for a few more decades. As Qin Imo spoke, both brothers smiled. They were also happy to be able to do something for their fellow villagers. Chapter 170. Internet Celebrity Village. The elderly had a satisfying meal of Michelin-level Western cuisine and returned to the main building to rest and digest. It wasn't too long before the movie screening team was back at work for the evening. After a few days, the news that the movie screening team was stationed in Qin Family Village had spread. When movie time arrived, people from nearby villages, regardless of age or gender, came over to join in the fun. Upon arriving at the village entrance, many first-time visitors were surprised to find that Qin Family Village had set up a snack street at the entrance, featuring many snacks that were usually found only in towns or cities. Items like takoyaki, Peking duck, pan-fried buns, and skewers had been brought in. The villagers from the surrounding areas never expected to see these snacks in the countryside, and the accompanying children were almost in tears, clamoring for their parents to buy them treats. When Qin Imo and the elderly from the village arrived at the activity center, the snack street was already packed with people. What is going on? Why are there so many people tonight? Our spots are all taken. Is there any fairness in this? The elderly were momentarily stunned. They had been the main audience for the movies in previous days, and everyone had already allocated their spots without needing to compete. Today, however, they found that 3 rows of people were already seated in front of the screening screen. Qin Imo hadn't anticipated this scene either. He had no objection to the nearby villagers coming to watch the movie together, but it was unreasonable for them to take up the spots meant for Qin Family Village. After some thought, Qin Imo stepped onto the stage and picked up the microphone, saying, "Ahem, friends from the nearby villages, hello. We welcome everyone to come and enjoy the lively atmosphere in Qin Family Village. However, my original intention in inviting this movie screening team was to provide a viewing experience for our fellow villagers. Isn't it a bit excessive to occupy the seats meant for us?" Qin Mo's words were clear yet firm. This was the screening team he had invited. And while it was fine for the villagers of Qin Family Village to take positions on a first-come, first-served basis, the outsiders didn't have that privilege. It was okay to watch the movie together, but the best seats needed to be reserved for the people of Qin Family Village. Coincidentally, the village chief from Wang Family Village was also present and was familiar with Qin Imo. He chimed in, saying, "Qin Imo is right. We should not take advantage of the situation. It's already generous that Qin Family Village is not charging us for the movie tickets. How can we occupy the best spots? Let us all move a bit." People from the nearby villages are also reasonable and immediately started another round of seat grabbing, leaving the best inner 3 layers of seats for the elderly of Qin Family Village. Amidst the envious gazes of the villagers from the surrounding areas, everyone stepped forward and settled into the best spots. This treatment makes me feel like a VIP. Haha, we are indeed VIPs, as Qin Family Village is our home ground. Did you see the envious looks from the people in Li Village? I can tell they wish they could join us in Qin Family Village. Joining is fine. Our little Imo isn't married yet, so if Li Village has suitable girls, I wouldn't mind. The elderly chuckled, while the villagers from other surnames outside were genuinely envious. After this year, Qin Family Village has completely transformed. Initially, they didn't believe what their young people said, but after coming to join the fun tonight, they were truly amazed. The film screening team, the snack street, and those brand new buildings. Someone just took a tour around Qin Family Village and even saw people gathering to eat Western food. Is this really the life of country folks? Envy, jealousy, and resentment. I heard all of this was brought to Qin Family Village by that young man, Qin Imo. Yes. I heard that Qin Imo is still unmarried. If one of our village girls marries him, could he help transform our Li Village too? Hiss. You might be onto something there. Isn't the daughter from your 5th family, known as the beauty of Li Family Village? If not now, then when? But don't be ridiculous. The beauty of Li Family Village isn't worthy of someone like Qin Imo. I heard he invested over 10 million in transforming Qin Family Village. So he must have assets worth over 100 million in the city, right? Over 10 million? My goodness. Many from the neighboring villages were hearing this for the first time and were left speechless. After watching a movie, the curiosity of these people from nearby villages about Qin Family Village was completely piqued. They walked around Qin Family Village, expecting not to see much clearly at night. But to their surprise, the entire village had installed solar streetlights. At around 9 or 10 at night, the village roads were as bright as day. And there were no crumbling concrete roads. Everything was paved with asphalt. When they reached the activity center, they were even more astonished. through the transparent glass doors. They could see sets of solid wood and genuine leather furniture inside. Hiss, can we come to this activity center? The neighbors from 10 villages were truly envious. That big sofa looked incredibly comfortable. Wouldn't it be delightful to lie on it? Someone, knowing Qin Guofu, the village head of Qin Family Village, mustered the courage to ask. Haha, you all want to come to our village's activity center? Qin Guofu chuckled, not expecting the center to gain fame in less than a day. He couldn't make that decision. You can't make that decision? Aren't you the village head of Qin Family? The people from the neighboring village were astonished. Haha, you don't know, now in Qin Family Village, I'm just a general worker as the village secretary. To get things done, we have to ask Xiaoma. If you want to come to our village center for an experience, you have to ask him too. The setup here was all done by Qin Mo and a few young people who contributed both money and effort. Hearing this, the villagers from neighboring areas were envious. They wondered, why can't the young people in their village learn from Qin Mo and create an activity center for the elderly? It's really frustrating to compare people. They didn't give up and actually went to ask Qin Mo. At that moment, Qin Mo was with Qin Tianrui, Qin Fengyu, Zhang Tingting, and a few other young people. Discussing things. They were momentarily taken aback by the inquiries from the neighboring village. Qin Tianrui whispered, isn't this inappropriate? Little brother, you spent so much money on these valuable things. You would be losing out by letting the people from the neighboring village use them. Qin Fengyu nodded in agreement, saying, yeah, public resources like the movie screening team and Snack Street are fine, but the items in the activity center will incur wear and tear. A sofa worth tens of thousands, just sitting on it could cost $10. It's okay for our village's elderly, but outsiders won't feel the same. Qin Mo understood this logic, but he didn't care much about money and wear and tear. What mattered more to him was making the elderly in Qin Family Village happy. He came up with an idea. You can experience it too, but you must be accompanied by someone from Qin Family Village. Each elderly person from our village can only bring one outsider in each day. As soon as Qin Mo finished speaking, the group from the neighboring village immediately rushed to find Qin Guofu and the others. Qin Tianrui was still in a daze, not fully processing what had happened. But Qin Fengyu understood Qin Mo's intention. Brother Mo is clever. Now everyone from the surrounding areas will have to please the elderly in Qin Family Village. The elders will be delighted. They used to be laughed at because there were so few young people in Qin Family Village. Haha, Fengyu, you understand me, Qin Mo smiled. Starting tomorrow, Qin Family Village would probably become a popular village in the area, standing out from the rest. Chapter 171. Shocked outsiders early the next morning. The entrance of Qin Family Village was already crowded with people waiting. They were villagers from the nearby areas, who had made arrangements the night before to visit the activity center led by the elderly of Qin Family Village. Of course, not everyone qualified for this. One elderly man from Li Village couldn't find anyone to guide him. Yesterday, Old Li was furious. He also wanted to participate in today's experience. But everyone from Qin Family Village rejected him. Why? You don't know this? Back in the day, Old Li had a feud with the third elder of Qin Family Village, Qin Huai, and they had been bickering for most of their lives. This is common knowledge among the people of Qin Family Village. The rule for the activity center was that entry must be accompanied by someone from Qin Family Village. When Old Li asked others in Qin Family Village for help, they all told him to look for Qin Huai. Old Li couldn't bear to do that, so he didn't come. Villagers from the surrounding areas chatted about the gossip, while the elderly of Qin Family Village had also gotten up. They then discovered that the elderly in Qin Village no longer needed to prepare their own breakfast. After getting up and washing up, they went directly to the dining hall, where pots of fragrant hot porridge were already prepared. Before coming to Qin Village, they had all eaten breakfast, but it was mostly just a bowl of plain noodle soup, which could not compare to the scene in front of them at the dining hall. There was hot porridge, dumplings, fried dough sticks, glutinous rice chicken, and big stuffed buns. What kind of heavenly life were the people of Qin Village living? Villagers from nearby areas were left wide-eyed in amazement. Not far away, the villagers of Qin Village naturally noticed the gazes from these people. Chewing on their delicious buns and sipping meat porridge, their faces were filled with pride. Haha, did you see those guys from Wang Village? Their mouths must be watering. They had never seen such a scene before. Later, when they went to the activity center, they would get to experience the Western cuisine for lunch. They would probably be so shocked that their jaws would drop. I wonder if the young folks like Xiao Mo and Tian Rui have prepared seafood today? Rural folks may be simple, but when given the chance to showcase themselves, the elders of Qin Village certainly didn't want to miss out. Who wouldn't want others to look at them with envy and admiration? At this moment, Qin Mo happened to get up and walk to the dining hall. Hearing the conversations of the villagers, he chuckled. Don't worry, second grandma. I know you're bringing villagers from other villages to visit today, and I won't let you down. The delicious food has been arranged early, and preparations are already underway at the Western restaurant. The idea of letting the elderly of Qin Village experience an increase in their sense of value was originally Qin Mo's plan. Xiao Mo, you've made the arrangements. So we can rest easy, one elder said. It's a pity that old Lee 1T backed down. Otherwise, third uncle, you could easily show him up. Cut it out. It's better if he doesn't T back down. That way, we 1T have to give him the good Western food. Third Uncle Chin Huai spat. Although he didn't have any deep-seated grudge against old Lee, they had been competing since their school days, and even in their old age, they still wanted to see who was better. A few years ago, old Lee had mocked Chin Huai about the declining population in Chin village, which had annoyed Chin Huai for a long time. This was the first time Chin Mo had heard about this. After listening to the discussions among the elders, he came up with an idea and said to Chin Huai, "Third uncle, don't worry. I'll make a guarantee that tonight old Lee will come begging you to let him enter the activity center." "What is your plan, Xiaomo?" The others from Chin village asked curiously. They had intentionally not invited old Lee, hoping to push him into seeking out Chin Huai to show off, but unexpectedly, old Lee simply didn't show up, leaving the plans of the few elders in vain. "Don't ask, just wait and see." Chin Mo smiled, finished his breakfast, and left to prepare at the activity center. By the time the elderly of Chin village finished their breakfast, the activity center was officially open. Villagers from neighboring areas entered under the guidance of the elders of Chin village, their eyes wide with wonder. Chin Mo had even added some extra activities. For example, Chin Tianrui temporarily invited several professional health check vehicles from Danyang City, along with Peking opera performances and various cultural shows. In no time, not only were the villagers from neighboring areas amazed, but even the elderly in Kanjiakan were surprised, wondering why Chin Mo suddenly added so many activities. By the end of the day's visit, the villagers from nearby areas were still reminiscing about the experience. They left Kanjiakan reluctantly, and upon returning to their own villages, they couldn't stop discussing it. Among them, someone from Litsuan returned and found old Lee praising the event. "Oh, old Lee, you really missed out by not going." "Missed out? I really thought I cared. It was just a shabby activity center. The other day, I went to my granddaughter's place in the city and also visited an activity center there," old Lee retorted while exhaling smoke. The villagers who returned quickly shook their heads. "Old Lee, you have no idea what you missed. That activity center in Kanjiakan is truly something else. Just the genuine leather sofas. They say they cost over 300,000 for a set. Those young people from Kanjiakan found a way to get them at a discount. Sitting on them is just so comfortable." "What is a sofa?" another person interjected. "Their activity center is so outrageous that they even serve Western cuisine. I heard they specially invited chefs from a 5-star hotel. The steak was sizzling with oil when it was cooked, and I can't even describe how good it was. Also, Chin Mo invited the city's Peking opera troupe over. The scene was just incredible." As everyone reminisced in front of old Lee, his expression became increasingly grim. He couldn't help but ask, "Is the activity center in Kanjiakan really that impressive? What reason would I have to lie to you? You can just go and see for yourself." "Today, after we finish our visit, it seems like Kanjiakan is preparing to bring another group tomorrow." "Still bringing more people for a visit?" Old Lee mumbled, puffing his cigarette, but feeling that it had lost its flavor. After hearing the villagers' introductions, he felt a strong urge to visit the activity center in Kanjiakan. However, everyone in Kanjiakan knew about his conflict with Chin Huai, and they deliberately ignored him, wanting him to seek out Chin Huai. "I want to see what is so special about your activity center." Unable to suppress his curiosity, old Lee finally took out his phone and called Chin Huai. Chapter 172. Fifth Master in Serious Trouble. On the other end of the line, Chin Huai was waiting for the evening movies opening with Chin Mo and others at a snack street. When he saw old Lee's call, he immediately smiled. "Xiaomo, you're amazing. Old Lee actually called me." Chin Huai laughed heartily as he held up his old-fashioned mobile phone, looking at the caller ID. "Look at this old man showing off. Hurry up and answer to see what he has to say." Third grandma couldn't help but chuckle from the side. Today's guided visit made everyone in Kanjiakan feel incredibly proud. Initially, they enjoyed the new buildings constructed by Chin Mo and felt life had become a bit more convenient. Now, with the recognition from outsiders, that sense of satisfaction was distinctly different. The most crucial thing is that all of this was arranged by Chin Mo and a few young people for the elderly. The proudest and happiest moment of their lives was having such a filial and outstanding descendant. The people from nearby villages were amazed by the activity center, and the elderly in Chin family village felt a great sense of pride for Chin Mo, laughing joyfully throughout the day. At that moment, Chin Huai was the happiest one. He picked up the phone and directly pressed the speaker button, exclaiming, "Oh, isn't this old Lee with a full house of descendants? What is up?" Remembering this lonely old man from Chin family village, upon hearing Chin Huai's smug voice, old Lee on the other end became furious. "Stop bragging. Just say it directly. Are you taking me to see that activity center or not?" "Oh, I'm not a petty person. Since you've asked, I'll take you in. But when you ask for a favor, you need to have the right attitude. Don't you agree, old Lee?" Chin Huai laughed heartily. Old Lee knew he wouldn't win this time, so he simply said, "All right, you win this time. Your Chin Mo is impressive. A few people from our village came back and praised your activity center to the skies. Old Li was both angry and curious. Otherwise, he wouldn't have called to admit defeat. Qin Huai was waiting for this response, laughing loudly. Haha, as long as you admit defeat, come over tomorrow morning. And I'll show you just how amazing the activity center that Qin Mo set up for us is. Satisfied, Qin Huai hung up the phone. And the others nearby also burst into laughter. People from Li Village had always pointed fingers at Qin Family Village due to their thriving population. Although it wasn't a major grievance, the elderly from Qin Family Village were naturally displeased. Who likes being pointed at every day? Now, the folks from Li Village were coming over, begging to be shown the activity center. Their attitude had completely changed from before. Qin Mo watched the elderly laughing happily. His face also adorned with a smile. Being a descendant who could make the elderly feel proud was the greatest achievement, wasn't it? In just a few days, the commercial street that Qin Mo was preparing had begun to take shape. One day, while Qin Mo was discussing some layout details with the construction team member Song Qingfeng, Qin Fengyu suddenly rushed over in a panic. Mo Gu, something's wrong. Qin Fengyu was out of breath, and the anxiety on his face was evident. Qin Mo had a bad premonition and asked, Fengyu, what happened? Grandpa Wu has fallen ill. We just took him to the clinic, but Dr. Zhou said the situation is serious and asked me to hurry and inform you. Qin Fengyu said as he walked. Hearing this, Qin Mo couldn't stay still. He left Song Qingfeng behind and pulled Qin Fengyu to run toward the clinic. A sudden cardiovascular issue? Dr. Zhou wasn't he confident? As Qin Mo listened to Qin Fengyu explain the situation, his brow furrowed deeply. Recently, Zhou Ying had equipped the village clinic with personnel and equipment, and normally, handling common ailments shouldn't be a problem. But the fact that Zhou Ying asked Qin Fengyu to notify him quickly indicated that Grandpa Wu's condition was critical. Qin Mo and the others quickly arrived at the village clinic, where Zhou Ying had just finished the emergency treatment. Seeing Qin Mo coming, he hurriedly stepped forward and said, Mr. Qin, you finally made it. Fifth Master has suffered a sudden stroke. I can't complete the diagnosis here. I've only given him a few injections to ensure his life is safe, but we must transfer him to a major hospital immediately. At this moment, the elderly villagers rushed over upon hearing the news. After learning the general situation, they became extremely anxious. Guofu, grasping Qin Mo's arm, urged Xiao Mo, you must save Fifth Uncle. Don't worry, Uncle Guofu. As long as I'm here, even the Grim Reaper can't take Fifth Master away, Qin Mo assured, patting his chest. He then instructed everyone to clear a path and pushed Fifth Master's stretcher out. Xiao Mo, what are you doing? Weivyi already called for an ambulance from the city. The elderly villagers of Qin Family Village couldn't understand Qin Mo's actions and shouted anxiously. However, Qin Mo had already pushed Fifth Master Qin Liangping several dozen meters away, with only Qin Tianrui and a few young ones able to keep up. Qin Mo turned back and shouted, it'll be too late by the time the ambulance arrives. I'm preparing to fly Fifth Master to a major hospital in the city. Just trust me. Although he had not yet secured a pilot, he had previously received a comprehensive system reward that included knowledge of all modes of transportation. He brought Fifth Master to the helicopter, had everyone help secure him in the back seat, and then invited Dr. Zhou Ying to sit in the co-pilot seat. Mr. Qin, can you really fly a helicopter? Zhou Ying looked at Qin Mo with a hint of fear as he boarded. Flying a plane is no joke. If Qin Mo acted recklessly out of urgency, not only could Fifth Master not be saved, but both Zhou Ying and Qin Mo could also lose their lives. I won't joke around with Fifth Master's life. Qin Mo took a deep breath as he sat in the pilot's seat. The knowledge in his mind was clear, but this was indeed his first practical operation. Fuel remaining, 95, sufficient. He turned on the main electrical control switch, activated the fuel pump, and started the engine. The dashboard indicators were all normal, and there were no obstacles around. Qin Mo meticulously checked the situation according to the knowledge in his mind, and sequentially activated the helicopter's electrical system. Once everything was ready, Qin Mo slowly pulled the throttle. The helicopter's rotor began to spin at an astonishing speed, and the powerful lift quickly took the helicopter into the sky, heading straight for the urban area of Danyang, leaving the villagers of Qin Family Village below in shock. I thought Mo Gu was all about making money and had no time left for anything else. I didn't expect he would also learn to fly a helicopter. Qin Tianrui watched as the helicopter became a small dot in the sky, his face filled with astonishment. Qin Fengyu and Zhang Tingting were also wide-eyed, momentarily at a loss for words. However, Qin Tianrui, being a few years older, quickly reacted and said, this isn't the time to be dazed. Fengyu, take care of the villagers. I'll drive to the city hospital to see how I can help. Chapter 173, Treatment Plan Danyang, First People's Hospital in the city. The departments of neurology, neurosurgery, emergency medicine, and cardiology suddenly became busy. The heads of these departments received a personal notification from the hospital director, stating that an important patient was about to arrive at their hospital. What is going on? Is there a high-profile individual coming to seek treatment here? The doctors and nurses from the 4 departments were called to assemble. Everyone except those with urgent cases gathered to prepare for the important patient. Indeed, it was said that more than 30 local entrepreneurs had contacted the hospital director collectively. That's why the director had us gather. What? More than 30 local entrepreneurs? The nurses were stunned upon hearing this. All right, stay focused. The patient will arrive soon. If anything happens to such a prominent figure, we might end up taking the blame. The director instructed loudly and then led the team upstairs. Director, why are we going upstairs to receive the patient instead of downstairs? Is there a mistake with the elevator button? One of the departmental doctors looked confused, thinking the director had made an error in his hurry. We're going upstairs to receive the patient. They're arriving by helicopter. Enough with the questions. Get into work mode now. Arriving by helicopter? The medical staff were startled again, realizing that this time, a significant figure from Donyang City was indeed coming. On the hospital rooftop, Chin Mo had already controlled the helicopter for landing, and the hospital staff were waiting there. Given the gravity of the situation, Chin Mo had no intention of being low-key. He directly contacted the heads of his hotel and office building to help find connections. The property management of the office building didn't have such capability, so they immediately discussed with the tenants. Chin Mo's terms were straightforward. Any assistance would result in a full waiver of this year's rent. Once this was announced, the office building owners were thrilled. Business was tough these days, and among all their costs, office rent was the largest expense. Waiving a year's rent could save struggling companies. No matter how well or poorly these owners were doing, they had been operating in Donyang City for 1 or 2 decades, so how could they not know people? They quickly connected Chin Mo to the First People's Hospital. Dozens of business owners used their respective channels to reach out, ultimately leading to the hospital director. The director was also taken aback. A property owner of an office building and the boss of a star-rated hotel? Such a person must have a fortune worth billions. After understanding the situation, the director promptly notified the staff of the 4 departments, resulting in the earlier scene of medical personnel assembling. At this point, the medical staff were ready with stretchers and various emergency tools, waiting on the rooftop. As soon as Chin Mo's helicopter landed, everyone rushed to assist, transferring Chin Liangping from the helicopter to the stretcher. The patient had suffered a sudden heart attack, which led to hypertension and caused a stroke. I have stabilized the heart attack, but the key issue now is that the patient remains unconscious and the brain condition is critical. Zhou Ying, following beside the stretcher, quickly explained the situation to the hospital staff. Zhou Ying, is that you? The hospital staff were momentarily taken aback when they saw Zhou Ying. Zhou Ying had previously been the chief physician at a local hospital before leaving to pursue business, and they never expected to run into him now. Is this patient someone you've been following for a long time? With Zhou Ying, a former chief physician, present, the hospital staff could skip many steps and directly asked. Zhou Ying nodded and began explaining the situation. The group quickly pushed Chin Liangping into the emergency operating room. With the help of large medical equipment like CT, MRI, and MRA, the hospital quickly confirmed the condition of Chin Liangping. Mr. Chin, he needs to undergo a craniotomy, and the risks of this surgery are very high. Zhou Ying reported to Chin Mo with a worried expression after discussing the situation with the hospital staff. Upon hearing this, Chin Mo felt a sudden jolt in his heart. A craniotomy was enough to make anyone's hair stand on end. Any mistake could be life-threatening. The neurosurgeons at the hospital did not have absolute confidence. With a maximum of only a 60% chance of success, Zhou Ying explained. That's unacceptable. Upon hearing 60, Chin Mo firmly rejected the idea, thinking it was no different from flipping a coin to decide life and death. If the doctors in Donyang don't have confidence, we'll send him to the provincial capital. If that doesn't work, we can go to the capital to find renowned doctors. Chin Mo refused to believe that in today's advanced medical world, there wasn't a doctor who could save Chin Liangping. Zhou Ying shook his head. Mr. Chin, this isn't about the doctors. The neurosurgery department at Donyang's First People's Hospital is already among the best in the country. Even going to the provincial capital or the capital wouldn't make much of a difference. Zhou Ying understood Chin Mo's feelings, as he could see the respect Chin Mo had for his fellow townspeople. Wait a minute, Chin Mo said upon hearing Zhou Ying's words. Are you implying that Donyang's hospital has top-tier standards domestically? How does it compare internationally? Zhou Ying was taken aback. There were indeed some differences compared to abroad, but it was impossible to send Chin Liangping for treatment overseas. The turbulence of flights or ships could endanger his life halfway. Naturally, we can't let him take that risk. Why not invite foreign experts to treat him here? Chin Mo suggested directly. Zhou Ying was stunned again. Mr. Chin, you might be thinking too simply. While the level of foreign doctors is indeed higher, the real gap lies in their advanced medical equipment. We can bring doctors from abroad, but what about the medical equipment? What to do? Buy it. If we can't buy, then rent it. If we can't rent long-term, then just rent it once. All I want is to save Chin Liangping. It's that simple. If there was no other option, Chin Mo would have to leave it to fate. However, since foreign equipment could increase the success rate of the surgery. There was no reason not to seek it out. High-end medical equipment involves complex international trade and technological barriers, but Qin Mo didn't care about that at all. He had no intention of buying it for commercial use, nor did he plan to dismantle or bypass it. He just needed to use it once to save Qin Liangping's life. Charter a plane and bring the medical team and equipment back at once. It would be best if the surgery could be performed today. Qin Mo had already made a decision and arrived at a cafe outside the hospital. At this moment, the cafe was fully booked by his boss's tenants. Since they had come forward to help Qin Mo seek assistance from the dean, they naturally wanted him to know their goodwill. The one-year rent exemption was also a significant amount of money for them. When they saw Qin Mo approaching, they quickly inquired, "Mr. Qin, how is your fifth master doing?" "The situation hasn't improved," Qin Mo replied honestly. "But first, I want to thank all of you for your help. As I mentioned, the one-year rent exemption is available for those who contributed. You can register with the property management." The offices of these dozens of bosses varied in size, with monthly rents generally ranging from 30 to 50,000. The total annual rent for dozens of units could amount to over 10 million. However, Qin Mo didn't care about that. He currently had several hundred million in cash, and with gold, jewelry, planes, and ships, his net worth was likely over $1 billion. A mere 1 or 2 million was like a person with 10,000 spending $10. Qin Mo continued, "Now, I would like to ask you for another favor. I wonder if you have any connections to overseas medical institutions. This is my fifth master's medical record, and I need to find an institution that can guarantee a successful surgery." Zhou Ying, who was following Qin Mo, listened to him and distributed the printed medical records and treatment plans to the bosses. "As long as you can help find a capable institution. In addition to the one-year rent exemption, I will offer an extra 10 million as a reward." 10 million? The bosses gasped, their breaths quickening. They worked tirelessly all year, and it was rare to even have 10 million in business turnover, let alone profit. Now, Qin Mo was promising them 10 million, which was pure profit, equivalent to several years of hard work. "Rest assured, Mr. Qin, I will elevate this matter to a key project for the entire company immediately. Mr. Qin, our company is engaged in international trade and has some understanding of overseas medical services. I will arrange for my employees right away. Mr. Qin, I have a relative studying at a foreign medical school. I'll ask him to consult with his professors." With more people involved, naturally, more solutions emerged. Under Qin Mo's generous reward, the group of bosses each showcased their abilities, and even with a time difference of 1 or 2 hours, several proposals were returned within a short time. Given that designing overseas medical solutions was a specialized field, Qin Mo's undergraduate-level knowledge was insufficient, so he could only rely on Zhou Ying, the expert, to assess which proposals were feasible. Zhou Ying quickly identified one of the proposals. "Mr. Qin, this plan is viable. This German institution is quite reputable. They will bring a team and equipment on a chartered flight to treat your fifth master, with a success rate of over 90%. "Only 90%? Qin Mo frowned. He wanted a guarantee of complete success. Zhou Ying, hearing this, couldn't help but smile wryly. "Mr. Qin, you are overthinking it. They are a professional medical institution. Even if they are confident, they cannot express 100% certainty on paper. If anything goes wrong, that would be a serious violation." Qin Mo nodded. He understood that logic. "Since Dr. Zhou thinks there's no problem, let's proceed with this plan. Can they set off today?" The flight from Germany takes over 10 hours, and given the uncertainty of fifth master's condition, the sooner they leave, the better. They could set off immediately. But the funds that Zhou Ying reported to Qin Mo were only regarding the treatment plan, and now they just saw the final quotation. Goodness. This organization is asking for an exorbitant amount, a flat fee of 50 million. 50 million, that's 3 to 400 million. They are taking advantage of the situation. Zhou Ying was about to lose his temper. Qin Mo just smiled. A high price indicates that they are confident, so he instructed them to set off right away. After giving the orders, Qin Mo left first. 50 million is a staggering amount. He needs to liquidate the batch of gold in his possession. Fortunately, the gold provided by the system has a legitimate source, making it easy to cash out. After the initial payment was sent, the charter flight on the other side quickly took off. Dongyang City Hospital, being new to this type of international medical collaboration, promptly cleared an operating room for the procedure. After the overseas team arrived at Dongyang City Airport, the helicopters that Qin Mo had prearranged were also in place, swiftly transporting personnel and equipment to the hospital. During the setup process, the medical staff from abroad took a break and then proceeded with a 4-hour surgery. The operation was very successful, but the process was quite horrifying. Qin Mo learned that they had to remove a piece of Fifth Master's skull to lower the blood pressure, and then installed some kind of aneurysm clip on the cerebral blood vessels. Just hearing the description was chilling. No wonder the hospital only had a 60% confidence level. A day quickly passed, and when Qin Liangping woke up the next morning, Qin Guofu, Qin Huai, and others were already at the hospital, surrounding his bedside. Fifth uncle, you finally woke up. Did I pass out and get sent to the hospital? As Qin Liangping just woke up, he felt a bit of pain in his head and reached out to touch it. Qin Guofu quickly stopped him. My fifth uncle. Don't touch it. You have a hole in your head and don't even know it. If you touch the wound, who knows what trouble it'll cause. What? Who opened a hole in my head? Qin Liangping was startled. The others nearby, including Qin Huai, couldn't help but laugh at his reaction. Seventh aunt, half laughing and half crying, said, Fifth brother, you really don't know what happened? Your life was snatched back from the hands of the king of hell by Xiao Mo at the cost of several hundred million. Several hundred million? Qin Liangping was shocked again. When he learned the truth from the older folks in Qin family village, he felt like he could only pound his chest in frustration. Xiao Mo is such a foolish child. Why didn't you stop him? My life is worth Xiao Mo spending several hundred million? The hospital said there was a 60% chance, so I should have just tried the surgery. Whether it succeeded or not is fate. Qin Liangping truly felt heartbroken. Several hundred million. That's a figure he couldn't even imagine. Based on his own self-assessment, he wasn't even worth a fraction of that. What is going on? Fifth Master, I just pulled you back from the brink of death, and you want to give up already? Qin Mo's voice boomed as he entered the hospital room. Let me tell you, Fifth Master, I spent a solid 37 small targets on you. If you only live for one more day, that means I spent 37 small targets just to buy you one more day of life. Qin Mo calculated for Qin Liangping. If you live for another year, that averages out to just over 10 million a day. If you live for another 10 years, that would be just 1 million a day. Qin Liangping was taken aback, starting to count on his fingers. He thought about his earnings from when he worked in the city, recalling that he could make over 200 a day. So, if I live for 1,000 years, I wouldn't be at a loss. This calculation left Qin Liangping completely bewildered. Chapter 175. Still childlike at 70, once Qin Liangping realized he would need to live for 1,000 years to repay Qin Mo, he stopped shouting, afraid he might aggravate his injury and not have enough years left to live. Grandma Qi and the others burst into laughter. Who would have thought you'd be tamed by our little Mo? You spent a few billion on him. It'd be a shame if we don't live to a ripe old age. You all are the same. Qin Mo shot a glare at the elderly. He was genuinely scared by Fifth Master's condition. His system had just started to improve life in the village, and now, just a few days into good times, someone was on the verge of death. That couldn't happen. Each of you needs to obediently go for a health check. I've already arranged everything at Donyang Hospital. As Qin Mo spoke, he pulled out several health check forms and had his second brother, Qin Tianrui, distribute them to the elderly. The moment the old folks saw the forms, their smiles faded. For them, not having a health check meant no problems, but after one, there would surely be a pile of issues, ruining their days. Who at their age could still be in good health? Oh, little Mo, why waste this money? One elder complained. We know our own bodies. We don't need to pay the hospital for a checkup. Another elder chimed in. That's right. We already had health checks at the clinic and activity center in Qin Village. One by one, the elderly were looking for excuses, clearly unwilling to go for the checkup. Qin Tianrui seemed to have anticipated this reaction, looking at Qin Mo with a resigned expression. Qin Mo was both amused and exasperated. These old folks were as mischievous as 3-year-olds, refusing to listen to reason. However, Qin Mo was quick-witted and thought of a way to persuade them. He said seriously, if you don't want to get checked, that's fine, but let me make myself clear. Fifth Master's situation isn't an isolated case. If any of you encounter problems in the future, I, Qin Mo, will go bankrupt to save you. The treatment for Fifth Master cost 3 to 4 billion. And while I can manage this time, I want to be able to next time. I refuse to let any of you die from illness without help. As soon as Qin Mo finished speaking, Qin Huai and the others were momentarily stunned, and then they began to rally against him. Xiao Mo, what are you talking about? We're all old, with one foot already in the grave. Whatever time we have left is up to fate. I don't care about fate. To put it bluntly, if you get sick, I would exhaust my family fortune to trade for your life from the underworld. Oh dear. Qin Huai, listening anxiously, said to Zhu Yue beside him. Second sister-in-law, please talk to this kid. Qin Mo waved his hand and coldly replied, no one can convince me. I've made myself clear. After saying that, he pretended to be angry and left the hospital room. The younger ones, Qin Tianrui and Qin Fengyu, were not foolish. They quickly understood Qin Mo's intention. Seeing him leave, they hurried to play their roles. Qin Tianrui was the first to speak up. Uncle Fu, Grandpa, Grandma, don't you understand what Qin Mo means? If you don't get a checkup, you want to know the state of your health. If something goes wrong, Qin Mo would have to spend everything to save you. Qin Fengyu chimed in. Right, don't doubt it. With the way Qin Mo is acting today, if a foreign institution demanded 10 billion, he would sell his assets to pay. Zhang Tingting nodded in agreement. Grandpa and Grandma, if you really want to save Qin Mo money, you should obediently go for a checkup. Preventive costs are definitely cheaper than dealing with a sudden illness. The younger ones took turns explaining Qin Mo's intentions to the elderly. Although the older generation was somewhat reluctant to face medical issues, they understood the reasoning. If they really fell ill, they wouldn't want to see Qin Mo exhaust his fortune to save them. Even lying in the hospital bed, Qin Liangping joined in to persuade, "Dear siblings, you should listen to the young ones this time and get your checkups. If I'd known I had this issue earlier, I could have saved Xiao Mo billions for my treatment." Qin Liangping's feelings were extremely complicated. The fact that Qin Mo was willing to spend billions to save him made him feel valued, which was comforting in his old age. However, as someone nearing the end of life, he hated to burden the younger generation, especially a good kid like Qin Mo. If given a choice, he would rather die than spend Qin Mo's billions on treatment. Of course, he had a better option, getting a checkup early to understand his health condition and being more cautious in daily life, which would be beneficial for everyone. This was a choice he couldn't make, but others could. Well, what can we do? Let us just go for the checkup. Qin Guofu, as the village head, had to take the lead. Outside, Zhou Ying, the clinic head of Qin Family Village, watched the elderly walk out with their checkup forms and secretly smiled. Only Qin Mo could come up with such a method to get these elderly folks to cooperate. The checkup results would take a day, and during this time, Qin Mo had Zhou Ying recruit additional medical staff in Danyang. Previously, Qin Mo only thought of doctors and nurses, but in reality, nutrition and exercise also needed dedicated personnel to oversee. Otherwise, with the elderly's laziness, they would soon develop health issues from overeating and lack of activity. A few days passed, and when Qin Liangping could be discharged to return to the village for recovery, all the work of Qin Mo was completed. A well-structured elderly nutritional healthcare team followed Qin Mo to Qin Family Village. Early the next morning, Qin Mo saw a young girl in charge of exercise health leading the elderly in learning square dancing. The girl danced beautifully, and the elderly in the village were motivated to engage in fitness, taking Qin Liangping's past experiences as a lesson. Things seemed to be heading in a positive direction. Qin Mo breathed a sigh of relief. This incident involving grandfather Qin Liangping served as a wake-up call for him. While it was good for the elderly to prioritize health, the expenses made him feel quite pained. At this moment, Qin Tianrui was beside Qin Mo. He didn't feel much when they were in urgent need of help. But now that he calculated the costs, he felt a headache for Qin Mo. That foreign organization clearly had their hands out, taking nearly 400 million from Qin Mo. No amount of money should be spent like this. Qin Mo smiled and said nothing. On the day grandfather Qin Liangping was discharged, he received a reward from the system. Ding! The host has given back to the villagers, rescuing villager Qin Liangping from the brink of death, earning a 30 equity reward from Alpha Medical Group. Chapter 176. Scenic Landscapes. When Qin Mo heard the system's reward, he couldn't help but laugh out loud. Alpha Medical Group was indeed the parent company of the foreign team that had taken advantage of him. They managed to earn 50 million from him, but unexpectedly, the system had directly given him 30 of the shares of their parent company. In a way, Qin Mo had brought business to his own company. And compared to that 50 million, the 30 share in Alpha Medical Group was worth an astonishing asset of over 10 billion. Alpha Company's annual dividends reached hundreds of millions of dollars, and with 30 ownership, Qin Mo could earn 1 billion yuan just by lying down for a year. Now that he was an important shareholder of Alpha Company, what about those high-end new equipment? When the foreign team operated on grandfather Qin Liangping, Qin Mo had watched the hospital staff with envy, wishing he could see the advanced surgical equipment up close. The envy of the medical staff, when directed at patients, was a matter of life and death. While Qin Liangping had Qin Mo pulling out all the stops to invite the overseas team, other patients didn't have such luxury. If only he could keep that set of equipment. Qin Mo stroked his chin. This equipment involved many patents and technical restrictions. Even as an important shareholder of Alpha Medical Group, he couldn't publicly retain that equipment. But if he couldn't do it publicly, he could consider doing it privately. Many elderly villagers in Qin Family Village often had high blood pressure and minor cardiovascular issues, and they might need that equipment to save their lives in the future. Shouldn't the clinic in Qin Family Village upgrade to a private hospital? This was something Qin Mo couldn't handle alone, so he sought out Zhou Ying for a discussion. What? Am I going to be promoted to director? When Zhou Ying heard what Qin Mo said, his eyes nearly popped out. He had previously thought that returning to the city hospital as a chief physician would be difficult, and he came to Qin Family Village intending to work diligently for 3 to 5 years. But only a few months had passed. You want to expand the clinic and turn it into the first private hospital in the surrounding 10 miles. Qin Mo nodded, explaining that private hospitals receive less scrutiny and have fewer restrictions. This way, he could buy back the equipment previously used by Elder Wu and set it up, along with some devices that shouldn't be publicly available. As an important shareholder of the Alpha Medical Group, the private hospital needed equipment, and there was no reason for the group to refuse Qin Mo. What? Zhou Ying was startled again by the second half of Qin Mo's statement. He was a medical doctor, truly knowledgeable about the field, and the types of patented technologies involved in Elder Wu's surgical equipment could not simply be purchased with money. The willingness to let it be used once was purely due to the value of that 50 million. You don't need to worry about the equipment. As the director, your job is to plan for talent. Don't feel too pressured. Just treat it as an upgrade for the clinic. Our primary goal for the private hospital is to serve the villagers of Qin Family Village, not to make a profit, Qin Mo casually stated. But Zhou Ying was sweating profusely. Qin Mo didn't understand the field, but he couldn't afford to be ignorant. If Qin Mo really brought in those advanced devices, the private hospital in Qin Family Village would soon become a focal point in the medical community. President Qin, if you're serious, I need to go back and prepare a draft immediately. If we have those high-end devices, we won't lack for professional talent. Once the professionals come, patients from all over the country will also come seeking treatment. Zhou Ying seemed to see the future of his career. He never expected that after failing in business, coming to the small Qin Family Village would present such a huge opportunity. We welcome patients from all over, but I still adhere to that principle. Qin Mo hadn't finished speaking when Zhou Ying quickly interjected, serving the villagers of Qin Family Village as the primary goal. I naturally understand President Qin's requirements. I'll start planning the proposal right away. Zhou Ying excitedly took his leave, and Qin Mo saw his eagerness. Knowing he wouldn't need to worry about it. Half a month passed in the blink of an eye, and Elder Wu had already recovered from the weakness after surgery. Now, apart from needing to bandage his head to avoid accidentally touching the wound, he was no different from other elderly people. He could even dance in the square, though there was a dedicated caregiver watching to ensure he didn't overexert himself. Early that morning, Qin Liangping finished dancing with everyone in the square and then went to the cafeteria for breakfast. After a bowl of hot porridge, he felt incredibly content. Wow, our Qin Family Village is really comfortable now. Exercise in the morning, a hearty meal, and then leisure time at the activity center with movies and snacks in the evening. Isn't that right? People from the neighboring village are so envious that they come to visit us every few days. Qin Liangping started the conversation, and the other elderly folks beamed with pride. It's just a bit lacking in scenery. Otherwise, those so-called internet-famous villages online can't compare to us. Qin Liangping said with a smile. Qin Family Village is just an ordinary rural area, built by the mountains and rivers, but it's all small hills and streams, lacking any picturesque landscapes, lacking a bit of scenery. At this time, Qin Mo was also sitting in the dining hall having breakfast. The thoughts of the villagers are his motivation. Brother Mo, what can you do about it? We're talking about natural scenery. Can you magically carve out mountains and rivers? The elderly were sitting in a circle for breakfast, while naturally, the four young people were sitting together at Qin Mo's table. Hearing Qin Mo pondering over what fifth uncle next door said, Qin Fengyu couldn't help but tease. In recent days, the young people of the Qin family had already witnessed Qin Mo's capabilities. The life-saving money of 50 million was something he could just take out. Such astronomical figures were beyond what Qin Fengyu had ever dared to imagine. Although money can make things happen, the Qin Family Village is a flat village built against the mountains, and it's truly impossible to create some picturesque scenery. Qin Tianrui bit into a big meat bun, echoing Qin Fengyu's statement. Who said that? Qin Mo suddenly smiled. Qin Tianrui, Qin Fengyu, and Zhang Tingting were all taken aback. They had already developed a conditioned reflex to Qin Mo's smile. Whenever he showed that smile, it was almost always a sign that he had thought of something new. As expected, Qin Mo spoke up. We indeed don't have real mountains and waters in Qin Family Village, but we can create some fakes. What is the point of fakes? Just buy some fake rocks and make a pond? Qin Tianrui was stunned. Qin Mo smiled again, clearly not referring to such trivial things. If we are going to do it, let us turn Qin Family Village into a garden. Create a garden? What is the difference from the fake mountains and ponds I just mentioned? Qin Tianrui, Qin Fengyu, and Zhang Tingting were all a bit confused. The difference is huge. You may not have an intuitive concept of a garden, but there is a royal garden in our country that you must have heard of. Qin Mo said with a smile. The Summer Palace. Nobody doesn't know about it, right? As soon as the three words were mentioned, Qin Tianrui, Qin Fengyu, and Zhang Tingting were all stunned. No way, little brother, you can't be serious. How much would that cost? Creating a royal garden? The elderly would directly become Empress Dowagers? Brother Mo, don't say the elderly wouldn't agree. Even I think it's a bit extravagant. What kind of serious person suddenly thinks of building a royal garden? Qin Mo wasn't so naive as to think he could actually build a royal garden. The Summer Palace took 15 years to build, decreed by the emperor, and even with the system's help, how could his abilities compare to that of an emperor? Naturally, it wouldn't be completed all at once as a royal garden, but the planning could aim for that level. Qin Mo was confident in doing this. If such a huge project were to be completed, no matter how much he invested, the system would definitely pay him back double, and more importantly, it would satisfy the villagers. With this thought in mind, Qin Mo began to carefully ponder the plan. He has a comprehensive understanding of undergraduate knowledge and some concepts about landscape design, but for an undergraduate to reach the level of a royal garden is quite challenging. Chin Mo needs to find someone capable to take on this task. After thinking it over, in today's modern society, the only ones researching how to build gardens seem to be the old scholars and professors in schools. So, Chin Mo decided to visit Danyang City in the afternoon. Danyang University is a well-known comprehensive university with various disciplines, including a landscape design program under the architecture school. As soon as Chin Mo arrived at the office of the architecture school, he overheard a discussion from inside. Professor Tan, let us forget about this landscape design competition. How much money would it take? A man's voice expressed helplessness. Another voice excitedly retorted, how can we just forget it? This is the design work that our students have painstakingly created. As long as we can produce a physical model, even if it's not 1-to-1, a 5-to-1 scale model could still have a chance to win. But Professor Tan, what is the point of winning an award? Who needs landscape design these days? You were the head of the landscape school, but now it has been merged into our architecture school, and you are just a deputy now. Our architecture school has many other places where money is needed. We can't waste it on this neglected field of landscaping. This person clearly held a higher position than Professor Tan. After saying this, he stormed out of the office, and Chin Mo happened to bump into him at the door. He smiled awkwardly, but the man ignored him and walked away. At this moment, Chin Mo peeked into the office. Inside, he saw an elderly man with gray hair, dressed like a scholar, sighing. There was a stack of design drafts next to him, which appeared to be a complete landscape design plan. Chin Mo took a few glances. In fact, he had searched for information online before coming to the school, so he recognized Professor Tan Buyuan from the landscape design program at Danyang University. Chin Mo didn't speak at first and leaned over to look at the drafts beside Tan Buyuan. Just one glance made him feel like he had discovered a treasure. Although his comprehensive undergraduate level prevented him from creating excellent landscape design drawings, he still had a basic aesthetic sense. Professor Tan, this design draft is brilliant. Chin Mo picked it up to take a closer look. The first image was the overall plan, and the following images provided more detailed designs and arrangements for each area. Who are you? Tan Buyuan finally noticed Chin Mo, momentarily taken aback, but not recognizing him, as he was relatively familiar with his landscape design students. Oh, I forgot to introduce myself. Chin Mo took out a business card. This card was printed by his family's 5-star hotel to facilitate interactions with strangers in the city. If Chin Mo mentioned he was from Chin Family Village, he would likely be met with disdain. The chairman of a 5-star hotel? Tan Buyuan looked at the card in Chin Mo's hand and sized him up. No matter how he looked at it, Chin Mo seemed to be around the age of his students, perhaps just a few years older. Does your hotel need landscape design? Tan Buyuan has a clear understanding of his value. The landscape design field he is in is different from business, as there aren't many notable connections to speak of. For someone like Chin Mo, a young entrepreneur, finding his footing can only be related to professional matters in landscape design. It's not about hotels. It's about our village. Chin Mo picked up the drawings on Tan Buyuan's desk and asked, Professor Tan, may I ask what you were discussing about the competition earlier? I happened to overhear it outside. Chin Mo had a vague suspicion that if Tan Buyuan needed to create a real landscape area for some competition, they would indeed be a perfect match. Tan Buyuan clearly understood Chin Mo's implication and quickly began to explain the matter. It turned out that this was a nationwide landscape design competition. With high standards and great difficulty, participants are required to create a physical landscape, which would then be judged and scored by a panel of masters, with the winners proving their capabilities. The landscape design college that Tan Buyuan is part of has been merged into the architecture college, and they don't have independent funding to participate in this competition. At this point, Tan Buyuan looked at Chin Mo with anticipation and said, Mr. Chin, are you planning to create a landscape area? Calling a much younger person Mr. Chin was somewhat awkward for Tan Buyuan, but given the circumstances, he really needed to secure crucial sponsorship to complete the landscape project for the competition. Mr. Chin, as long as you agree to use our competition design draft and allow our completed landscape to participate, we can waive all design and management fees to help you complete this landscape project. Waiving design and management fees? That's not necessary. Chin Mo didn't care much about that little money. What mattered more to him was whether Tan Buyuan, as a master in landscape design, could wholeheartedly complete this project. Hearing Chin Mo's words, Tan Buyuan thought that Chin Mo was reluctant to use their competition design draft and felt anxious to continue negotiating. But just as he opened his mouth, Chin Mo interrupted him. I will pay you the market rate for design and project management fees. Now I only have one question. If I hand over the entire project to you, Professor Tan, do you have the ability to complete it independently? Chapter 178. Eager Professor Tan handed over completely to me? Tan Buyuan was stunned. Is there really such a good opportunity in this world? Those of them engaged in landscape design are actually not much different from writers and filmmakers. What they fear the most is when the client interferes, leading to a ridiculous situation where an outsider directs an expert. Now that Chin Mo wanted to take a hands-off approach, he naturally welcomed it. Mr. Chin, may I ask what your budget is? Although Tan Buiyuan had been calling him Mr. Qin earlier, this time, his tone was filled with genuine expectation. He didn't need a lot of money, but a landscape project would still cost over 10 million. Tan Buiyuan was worried that someone like Qin Mo, who had suddenly become wealthy, might not know the actual costs of landscape projects and assume it could be done for just a few $100,000. Budget? Qin Mo hadn't really thought about this matter in detail. He had too many sources of income at the moment. Every day, there are millions flowing in and out of the bank account, and each quarter, dividends from various industries are credited. Is 1 million a day enough? Qin Mo asked tentatively. 1 million a day? Tan Buiyuan was stunned. What kind of budgeting method is that? Normally, ISNT it's supposed to be 10 million or 20 million. Tan Buiyuan was completely confused by Qin Mo. No, Mr. Qin, I really don't understand what you mean by 1 million a day. It's like this. I can only earn a little over 1 million a day, and I have other expenses to reserve, so I can allocate about 1 million for the landscaping project. Qin Mo explained. Tan Buiyuan was taken aback. Earning over 1 million a day, does business really work that well these days? Qin Mo was only a few years younger than him. Is that even realistic? Tan Buiyuan was starting to doubt where Qin Mo had come from. Are you dreaming a bit too wildly? Earning over 1 million a day means you'd be making 3 to 500 million a year. Tan Buiyuan sighed. He had been somewhat hopeful just a moment ago, but now he was ready to call security. Qin Mo, unaware of Tan Buiyuan's thoughts after hearing about the 1 million daily budget, had already prepared a bank card as a gesture of sincerity. He took it out and gently placed it on the table. The card had a note with a 6-digit password and Qin Mo's contact information. Professor Tan, there's 500,000 in here as my earnest money. If you have time, you can come to our Qin family village tomorrow to check out the site. This matter needs to be addressed quickly, Qin Mo said before turning to leave. Tan Buiyuan watched Qin Mo leave, still skeptical, and picked up the bank card. There was an ATM just outside their office, so he took the card over to check it. To his surprise, there really was 500,000 in the account. Tan Buiyuan was overjoyed. This wasn't a madman, but rather a unique and wealthy young boss. He immediately took out his phone and called a few graduate students he had brought along. Quick, pack your things. We're heading out to check the site. Our project has sponsorship. After seeing the money in the account, Tan Buiyuan was pumped and rallied his students to head to Qin Family Village to scout the location. They needed an astonishing 6 hectares of land for their competition design, roughly equivalent to 100 acres in rural terms, which meant high requirements for the site. Even if they could scale down the area proportionally, they would still need a large space. Wait, who are you guys? As Tan Buiyuan led his students hurriedly to inspect the site in Qin Family Village, Qin Mo was still in Danyang and hadn't rushed back. The elderly villagers didn't know who Tan Buiyuan's group was and stopped them. Tan Buiyuan, seeing the elderly villagers, felt as if he were meeting his own family. He enthusiastically walked up, shook hands with Qin Guofu, and greeted the villagers one by one. Hello, you must all be relatives of Mr. Qin, right? I'm here on Mr. Qin's behalf to help build a garden for Qin Family Village. I wonder which piece of land Mr. Qin has arranged for us. Tan Buiyuan was surveying Kinjiakan while speaking. At first glance, he saw the bustling construction site of a commercial street, with excavators and dozens of workers busy at work, which gave him a deeper understanding of Qin Mo's capabilities. No wonder he had the confidence to give him a budget of 1 million every day. Tan Buiyuan felt inexplicably excited, while the elderly folks of Kinjiakan were puzzled. What was going on? What was that kid Mo up to again? I heard something about building a garden. I see. It must be because Old Wu mentioned this morning that our Kinjiakan has everything but a nice view, and that kid Mo overheard it. Hearing this, Elder Qin Liangping became anxious. Hey, third brother, you shouldn't say that. I just muttered it quietly this morning. And you were echoing me on the side. Last time, Qin Mo had spent a significant amount of money to save Qin Liangping's life, and the psychological burden had been lingering. Now that this matter was being attributed to him, he was definitely not on board. Let's go, everyone leave. Our Kinjiakan doesn't need to build any manor. Exactly, just trying to mess with our Mo's wallet again. Hurry up and leave, or I'll get the broom. Granny Qi and the others had no ill intentions towards Tan Buiyuan and the others, but they absolutely would not allow Mo to waste money again. At their age, they couldn't keep messing around with the money of the young ones, or they might shorten their own lives. But Qin has already given me 500,000. Tan Buiyuan was being driven away by the elderly, and just as he was about to say something else, several young people, including Qin Tianrui, finally arrived. They had learned from Qin Mo in the morning that he was planning to create a manor in Kinjiakan, but they didn't expect him to act so quickly. In less than half a day, a team had already come to survey the terrain. Qin Tianrui knew his younger brother Qin Mo's style. Once things reached this stage, there was no stopping it. To get this done, he couldn't let Tan Buiyuan speak carelessly anymore. With this in mind, Qin Tianrui hurriedly stepped in front of the elderly folks, spreading his arms to block them. Dear villagers, please don't be anxious. Let me call Qin Mo to find out what is going on. Qin Tianrui calmed everyone down. then gave a knowing look to Qin Fengyu, who quickly dialed Qin Mo's number. Mo, what's the situation? There's an old scholar-looking man in his 50s with a group of students here, saying they want to survey the terrain for some garden. The elderly folks are getting anxious. Chapter 179. It turns out to be a misunderstanding. It's Professor Tan from Danyang University that I went to find. Has he already arrived in our village? Qin Mo was also a bit surprised. The way Tan Buiyuan had acted when they met earlier had been quite composed. How did he suddenly become so impulsive? He didn't even give him a call and went straight to Kanjiakan? Qin Mo hadn't even had the chance to explain the situation of Kanjiakan to Tan Buiyuan yet. Thinking of this, Qin Mo felt a rush of sweat and hurriedly asked on the phone, "The elderly folks don't know that I spent money, right?" It almost slipped out. Professor Tan was about to ask what kind of deposit you gave. Mo, you need to hurry back. We don't know how to smooth things over without knowing the whole story. All right, Fengyu. You and Tian Rui need to work together to hold on until I get back. Qin Mo hung up the phone and hurriedly drove towards Qin family village. Qin Fengyu was both amused and helpless. He walked over to Qin Tian Rui and whispered the situation in his ear. Over the past few days, Qin Tian Rui had gained some experience. After listening to Qin Fengyu's report, he chuckled heartily. Haha, it's just a misunderstanding. Qin Mo asked everyone to wait for him in the activity center's hall for an explanation. As he spoke, he instructed Qin Fengyu and Zhang Tingting to invite the elderly folks over while he pulled Professor Tan aside to explain the most important details. Professor Tan, I think I understand the situation. It's like this, in our Qin family village. Qin Tian Rui summarized the situation clearly. Tan Buiyuan frowned as he listened. We can't let the elderly folks know that creating this garden will cost money. That's impossible. Just wait for my brother Qin Mo to smooth things over. Right now, the important thing is not to let anything slip, or this project will likely fall through. Once Qin Tian Rui said this, Tan Buiyuan had no choice but to listen. If this matter fell apart, there would be no chance for their landscape design major to turn around. He was counting on this competition to win an award and restore the reputation of the landscape design major, striving to make it an independent college rather than being looked down upon while attached to the architecture department. Soon, Qin Mo returned. Upon arriving at the activity center's hall, he felt a tense atmosphere. Xiao Mo, you finally made it back. What is going on with the garden project? Just now, Tan Buiyuan and the others were clueless, which had raised huge doubts among the elderly folks in Qin family village. On his way back, Qin Mo had already thought of a countermeasure. It's not complicated at all. Professor Tan wants to come to our Qin family village to establish a luxurious garden. I oppose it. Grandma Air immediately expressed her opinion. The other elderly folks also voiced their agreement. Qin Liangping added, Xiao Mo, you took my words seriously this morning? Sure, Qin family village could use a bit more scenery. But it's not a big deal. Haven't we gotten used to it after living for decades? Just because the fifth one said something. Are you going to build a manor? Next time someone says Qin family village lacks a moon, will you go up and fetch one? Xiao Mo, we know you have the capability, but that's not how money should be spent. The elderly folks exchanged words, growing more agitated. And the scene resembled ancient officials passionately resisting a tyrant, as if Qin Mo had committed some great act of treason. Qin Mo smiled as he listened to the complaints from the elderly folks, then spoke up. Who said this project would cost us money? This statement left not only the villagers wide-eyed but also Qin Tian Rui, Qin Fengyu, and Zhang Tingting, who were all astonished. Even more surprised was Professor Tan Buiyuan's team, who were left dumbfounded. Wait, if Qin Mo isn't spending money, then who is? Facing the puzzled expressions from the crowd, Qin Mo continued, actually, this matter was initiated by Professor Tan. Qin Mo pulled the confused Tan Buiyuan forward and said, our village only provides land for Professor Tan's team. And Professor Tan still has to pay us a rent of 1,000 yuan per mu per year. What? We don't need to spend any money and can still collect rent? How can there be such good fortune? Oh, Professor Tan, we misunderstood you earlier. The poor land in Qin family village is something that even dogs wouldn't want, let alone renting it out for 1,000 yuan per mu. Even 300 yuan would be hard to come by on ordinary days. The reason is that there are too few laborers in Qin family village. In this day and age, it's easy to earn a few hundred yuan from 1 mu of land, but that requires manpower. With the elderly in Qin family village, managing a few mu of land to be self-sufficient is already exhausting enough. There's no extra energy to cultivate new land. So the land in Qin family village has always been left barren. Now that someone is offering 1,000 yuan per mu to rent it, the elderly are turning 180 degrees in their attitude. Those who were just fierce now look at Tan Buiyuan and the others with such warmth. Good people. They are all good people from the city, and they even know how to help us in the countryside. Oh, what a misunderstanding. Professor Tan, how much land do you need to create a garden? Our Qin family village has plenty of land to spare. You should have told us about this earlier, Xiao Mo. You made us neglect our guests. Tian Rui, quickly bring out my treasured old pu'er tea. In an instant, the elderly became kind and hospitable. leaving Tan Buiyuan and his group stunned, especially those students who came along. Having lived in the ivory tower of academia, they had never seen such worldly interactions and momentarily thought they had walked into a den of thieves. The three young people, Qin Tianrui, Qin Fengyu, and Zhang Tingting, were nearly laughing out loud. So it seems that Brother Mo understands these elderly folks well. This move is truly impressive. Now, not only do the elderly not oppose the idea of creating a garden, but it's likely that Professor Tan and his team 1T be able to leave it all. The young people naturally know that the rent Qin Mo mentioned is just a facade. Most likely, Qin Mo would still be the one paying for Professor Tan's team, while Professor Tan pretends to pay rent for the village. Some clever elderly folks also suspect this possibility, and at this moment, the third elder, Qin Huai, begins to have doubts. Wait a minute, Xiao Mo, why did Professor Tan's team come to our Qin family village instead of looking elsewhere? Qin Mo was also prepared for this question. Isn't it just a coincidence? I heard from fifth uncle this morning that our village lacks scenic spots. After inquiring around, I found out that Professor Tan's team is participating in a landscape design competition, and their design just won an award. They are quite eager to create a physical garden. Isn't it just right that we have Boss Song Qingfeng as construction team here? Plus, the land is already empty, so there's no need for demolition. Otherwise, with Professor Tan's reputation, how would it even come to our Qin family village? As Qin Mo spoke, he called out to Tan Buiyuan, Professor Tan, can you show everyone the award certificate you received? Chapter 180. A poetic Qin family village. This half-truth and half-falsehood is the best way to deceive. Tan Buiyuan also took pride in winning an award for this design draft, and he quickly opened the electronic certificate of their team's victory on his laptop. Qin Huai and others were stunned when they saw the certificate. This was a national competition, and Tan Buiyuan's team had won the first prize in design, which was an impressive achievement. Now, Professor Tan needed to create a physical version to participate in the physical evaluation. If they could also win the first prize, then Kinjiakin would gain recognition as well. Qin Mo said with a smile. The elderly folks listened and were all smiles. They could collect rent, get a free garden, and have a chance to gain national fame in the future? I say, little Mo is impressive. You've managed to pull such a good opportunity. After amusing the elderly folks at home, Qin Mo took Tan Buiyuan for a stroll around the village. Kinjiakin indeed had a lot of land. Tan Buiyuan didn't even need to compress his design scale. He could build according to the actual size of the design draft. Mr. Qin, are you saying we can use the entire 1,000 acres of land? Tan Buiyuan was thrilled, holding Qin Mo's hand as if he had met a long-lost relative. His students behind him were also extremely excited. 1,000 acres of land. How much would it cost if they had to pay for it? Although they were students and inexperienced, they understood what 1,000 acres represented. 1,000 acres for free. And you can also provide funding for the garden construction? Tan Buiyuan confirmed the details carefully. No, it's not free. You have to pay, didn't I just say? The rent is 1,000 per acre, and we can start with a 10-year contract. Huh. Tan Buiyuan was taken aback. The rent for 1,000 acres was 1 million. Where would these poor teachers and students get that money? Seeing Tan Buiyuan's stunned expression, Qin Mo chuckled and said, Professor, don't you understand yet? In the village, I am just the villager Qin Mo, and you are renting land to build a garden. In Danyang City, I am the hotel chairman, sponsoring your team. Tan Buiyuan and his students were confused by Qin Mo's explanation. Mr. Qin, aren't you just transferring money from your left hand to your right? One of Tan Buiyuan's students couldn't help but ask. Not at all. The sponsorship from the hotel has nothing to do with me, Qin Mo. I'm not a spendthrift. With Qin Mo making it clear, Tan Buiyuan finally understood. Got it. Mr. Qin is making connections for his hometown and bringing in a garden construction project. Mr. Qin is also a garden enthusiast, providing sponsorship for our garden design program. Smart. Qin Mo praised Tan Buiyuan as he finally grasped his dual identity. Qin Mo didn't need to worry about the next steps. Tan Buiyuan quickly confirmed the plans and steps for the garden construction, and the group of students behind him were all elites in this area, quickly drafting a proposal. Song Qingfeng, the astute businessman, also sensed the opportunity and rushed over. Building a garden, how much earth-moving work would that involve? This business deal is probably not less than creating a commercial street. He patted his chest and assured, as long as the funds are in place, I will immediately bring in 2 new construction teams for Mr. Qin and Professor Tan. I guarantee that we will dig out the lake within 3 days. The key aspect of landscape construction is the water feature. According to Professor Tan's design, there needs to be a huge artificial lake in the center of the garden, surrounded by rocks and plants, with a stone path leading to the courtyard. Alright, you and Professor Tan can discuss how to proceed. No need to rush, but do it quickly. Qin Mo continued to manage everything as usual. 2 months passed in the blink of an eye. The commercial street project was slightly delayed because Song Qingfeng had assigned more workers to the park construction. In just a month, the landscape project in Qin Family Village had taken shape. A super artificial lake, measuring a radius of 500 meters, sat right in the center. The village was already rich in birds and fish, and with such a large habitat emerging, the elderly villagers helped gather fish from the surrounding streams, which quickly thrived within a month. With the fish present, the birds naturally flocked to this food source. Thus, in just 2 months, although other parts of the garden were still incomplete, the scene of grass growing and birds flying over the lake had already emerged. To facilitate birdwatching for the elderly villagers, Tan Buiyuan also had his students design a traditional-style tower pavilion. Recently, villagers from Qin Family Village enjoyed their walks there, admiring the clear lake and the flying birds. Feeling immensely joyful. Little Mo, isn't this artificial lake just stagnant water? How come it's so clear? Most villagers had small ponds beside their fields, and some even had fish ponds, but those waters were far from clear. Just not smelling bad was a win. Third uncle, do you think this artificial lake is the same as your fish pond? Qin Mo, knowledgeable in this area, explained, when we rural folks dig a pond or fish pond, it's usually for growing rice or raising aquatic products. It's all about producing goods, so the stocking density naturally increases. With ducks, geese, and fish in the water, how could it not smell? But an artificial garden is different. Professor Tan created this water area for aesthetics and tourism, to ensure the water was clear. Before the elderly villagers placed fish and shrimp in the lake, Tan Buiyuan's team had already planted a large number of aquatic plants. Thanks to the plant's ability to absorb and purify, the pollution generated by the fish and shrimp could be naturally cleared away. This was also part of the garden design. The entire ecological landscape would be perfectly designed, maintaining ecological balance for a significant amount of time without requiring human intervention. Indeed, the master is truly a master. No wonder he can win awards. The elderly villagers listened to Qin Mo's explanation with awe, their gazes towards the artificial lake filled with appreciation. At that moment, as the sun set, a group of villagers from Qin Family Village stood under the evening sun, the crimson rays reflecting on the lake, creating a scene reminiscent of a world-famous painting. Qin Mo naturally recalled a line from an ancient poem, a line from Wang Bo's preface to the Pavilion of Prince Tung, which speaks of the sunset clouds flying alongside solitary wild ducks and the autumn waters merging with the vast sky. Of course, compared to the solitary and contemplative Wang Bo, the elderly in Qin Family Village were chatting and laughing with each other, creating a more harmonious atmosphere. Qin Mo smiled with satisfaction from the bottom of his heart, took out his phone, and quietly captured this scene in the background. At the same time, a notification from the system chimed in. Ding! The host has given back to the villagers, creating a garden for Qin Family Village, and has received a tenfold return on landscaping expenses. Chapter 181. The generous sponsor a tenfold return on landscaping expenses? Upon hearing this system reward, Qin Mo was overjoyed. He pulled out his phone and saw a huge sum of 140 million had already been credited to his account, which was the tenfold return on the investment made in the garden over the past 2 months. Wow, this feels great. Qin Mo had previously sold a batch of gold to treat Fifth Master, and although he had cash flow from hotels and supermarkets, not having a substantial amount of cash on hand still made him anxious. Now, with this tenfold return, he had to replenish his little treasury. He needed to increase the budget. It had to be increased. Qin Mo sought out Professor Tan to express his thoughts. Why was there a sudden need to increase the budget? Tan Buiyuan was baffled. He had never dealt with such affluent projects before. A serious sponsor usually has all sorts of restrictions in place, but Qin Mo, as a sponsor, was spending money freely. He had already spent 14 million in 2 months. And now he wanted to increase the budget? This abundance of funds was somewhat disrupting Tan Buiyuan's plans. Mainly because I suddenly wanted to collect some rare stones. I've heard those unique stones have great collectible value. It just happens to fit into the garden, serving both as art and an investment. Qin Mo was intentionally playing coy. Although his knowledge of gardens was only at an undergraduate level, he still had an idea about the value of stones. There are several famous unique stones in the royal garden, such as the renowned Qingji Rock, which is a national treasure that cannot be bought for any amount. If there was a stone of such caliber, even a dilapidated place could become a historical site. Of course, such national treasures are unattainable even if Qin Mo had the money. He was just looking for some unique stones from the folk, the more expensive the better. As for their collectible value, it didn't matter. After all, the system would first give him a wave of tenfold cashback, so he couldn't possibly lose. Unique stones certainly have collectible value, but that's exactly why they are rarely sold on the market, Tan Buiyuan explained. Those who can afford to build private gardens are generally wealthy individuals. It's somewhat embarrassing to create a garden without having a large estate-level villa. However, as the director of landscape design, Tan Buiyuan certainly had some channels. Some wealthy individuals might have gone abroad and left their unique stones behind, too large to transport. So they decided to sell them. Others may have faced bankruptcy or cash flow issues and needed to liquidate these stones for cash. If President Qin truly needs them, I do have some channels, But the prices of these stones fluctuate greatly, so I can't guarantee you won't incur losses. A stone could sell for several million. Those who understand the market find it worth it, while those who don't see it as just a piece of rock. And the liquidity of such items isn't high. Once the millions were in hand, it became uncertain when the next buyer would appear. And Tan Buiyuan really didn't dare to speak recklessly to Qin Mo. No worries, I'll make the decision for the sale myself. You just need to help guide me. A few days later, several large trucks creaked their way to Qin village. Along with the trucks came professional cranes and workers, unloading strange stone sculptures and artificial hills, which were placed in designated spots in the village's garden by the cranes. Tan Buiyuan's team was also cautious, personally overseeing the workers and cranes on site. If any of these items were to get damaged, even slightly, it could mean a loss of hundreds of thousands. The elderly villagers, hearing the commotion, gathered around and quickly saw those peculiar boulders being placed into the garden. Hey, this stone, it seems familiar, like I've seen it on TV before. These giant stones were indeed unique. One of them appeared to be a natural hole that oddly resembled a monkey. Another one was impressive as well. I had seen similar stone sculptures in the county before, rumored to be of cultural relic status. With the connections and channels introduced by Tan Buiyuan, Qin Mo utilized his wealth to sweep through the county and city in recent days. Among them, a 3-meter-tall boulder that amazed the elderly villagers was a treasure that had indeed appeared on television. This boulder was called Monkey Mountain, sculpted by nature's craftsmanship. Qin Mo introduced it to the elderly villagers. Originally, Monkey Mountain was part of a renowned collector's collection and had even been featured in interviews by a broadcasting station. However, that collector recently faced misfortune and went bankrupt, leading to the forced auction of his assets by the court. Upon learning this news, Qin Mo naturally wouldn't miss such an opportunity. He directly bid 7 million, double the base price, since the system reimbursed 10 times, making it even more cost-effective the higher the price. Professor Tan, who was nearby, was stunned. Many of his plans were designed with a low budget in mind. And now with Qin Mo's extravagant approach, he had to revise the garden designs to highlight these unique stones. Originally, Tan Buiyuan's design was already at a national first-class standard, and now with these incomparable stones added, the overall prestige of the garden reached the top tier. When the garden reopened 2 weeks later, the elderly villagers of Qin village were awestruck by the completed garden. Wow, is this really the kind of garden scenery we can see in our Qin village? The first reaction of everyone was shock. Pavilions, emerald bamboos, towering pines, clear waters winding around stones, and meandering paths leading to secluded areas. Was this scenery found in a rural area? The elderly villagers inadvertently felt as if they had entered an ancient emperor's courtyard, their steps becoming much more cautious. At this rate, I wouldn't trade it for a villa in the city. Perhaps only the 5A-rated scenic spots in the city could compare. Should we consider opening the garden for ticket sales? Haha, Granny Chi, if you want to open for profit, you still need Professor Tan's approval. Nominally, the land in Qin Family Village is leased to Tan Buiyuan, so he has the actual usage rights. However, Tan Buiyuan, as the party involved, is very aware that Qin Mo, who is behind him, is the true owner. Therefore, when he hears the comments from the villagers, he just smiles and says nothing. Soon, the deadline for the landscape design competition arrived. The professional judges arrived at Qin Family Village by bus, looking quite disdainful. What was Tan Buiyuan thinking? Choosing such a remote village to build a garden? The judges are all industry bigwigs, with some family background, and naturally have a higher standard of living. So they aren't fond of rural areas. A middle-aged man who accompanied the judges laughed and said, "You all don't know? Tan Buiyuan's academy has been dissolved and merged into the School of Architecture. Where would he find funding?" This man, named Su Bin, was a classmate of Tan Buiyuan during their student days, and they have been rivals for decades. Now he is the dean of the Landscape Design Academy at a university in the provincial capital, effectively overshadowing Tan Buiyuan. Although he initially had no business here, he managed to pull some strings to accompany the judges to Qin Family Village, just to find an opportunity to mock Tan Buiyuan. Their university's Landscape Academy is recognized as the top seed in this competition. This is truly embarrassing for our landscape design. The judges shook their heads in response to Su Bin's words, having not yet seen Tan Buiyuan, and naturally had no expectations for the garden in Qin Family Village. However, as a formally selected judging panel, they couldn't just turn around and leave. They had to patiently wait for Tan Buiyuan to lead the way. Soon, several luxury cars arrived at the village entrance. These cars belonged to Qin Mo, who had previously rewarded Qin Tianrui and Qin Fengyu with them. And today they were called back to receive guests. The judges, who had previously looked down on Qin Family Village, were stunned upon seeing these luxury vehicles. Each one costs over $1 million. How could such a small remote village have this kind of presence? Su Bin felt quite displeased when he saw his old rival. Tan Buiyuan, get out of one of Qin Mo's luxury cars. Heh, Tan Buiyuan, I didn't expect you to learn how to put on such a show. These luxury cars can't possibly be yours. Where did you borrow them from? Tan Buyen, upon seeing Su Bin, also had a cold expression and retorted with a sneer. It's indeed not my car. It's provided by my sponsor. What is the problem with that? You found a sponsor? Su Bin furrowed his brow. He was aware of Tan Buyuan's design capabilities, and if he really managed to find a sponsor, it would be uncertain who would win the championship of this competition. A student assistant following Su Bin smiled and whispered, Professor, you don't need to worry. If Teacher Tan really found a wealthy sponsor, how could he possibly be building a garden in this remote village? The student's reminder brought a smile back to Su Bin's face. Yes. Which wealthy person would build a garden in the countryside? With this thought, Su Bin sneered. All right, the showboating ends here. The judges are here today to score your work. A group of people got on the bus and soon arrived at the Qin family village garden. As soon as they got off, the members of the judging panel were stunned, and Su Bin, along with the accompanying students, was left speechless. Professor Tan, didn't you always say you were short on funds? The panel members were taken aback. Upon arriving at the entrance of the garden, they saw the Monkey Mountain. Outsiders might not recognize the value of the Monkey Mountain at first glance, but the judges were professionals. This rockery alone was worth several million. Moreover, in order to highlight this unique stone, Tan Buyuan had even arranged a garden nearby, which surprisingly housed cranes. This was not a display typical of a budget constraint. Seeing everyone's astonished faces, even though he was in his 50s, Tan Buyuan couldn't help but show a smug expression. Especially when he saw Su Bin's shocked look, which made him beam with joy. Previously, due to the merger cancellation of the academy, Su Bin had treated him as a laughingstock, but now he could finally turn the tables and suppress his rival. Oh, this is just my sponsor being overly generous. This Monkey Mountain is merely a small component, he remarked casually. A small component? The judges were truly amazed. As they followed Tan Buyuan inside, they were completely dumbfounded. Various rare animals, famous stone formations, and an enormous man-made lake spanning several hundred meters, along with vast green lawns, made everyone feel as if they had stepped into a 5-star natural scenic area. To create a garden of this caliber, it would definitely require tens of millions. Tens of millions. This amount could buy the entire Qin family village. Who was this generous sponsor backing Tan Buyuan with such a large sum? After circling the garden, the judges exchanged glances and ultimately had to give a high score from the bottom of their hearts. Su Bin, who had come along, had a dark expression on his face. He had thought he could mock Tan Buyuan this time, but instead, he found himself to be the fool. No matter how unwilling he was to admit it, he knew that his own work could not compare to the Qin family village garden before him. 2 weeks later, the final award list for the National Garden Design Competition was released. Unsurprisingly, the Qin family village garden, handled by Tan Buyuan, took first place, quickly gaining fame in the national landscaping community, with news coverage as well. Villagers from nearby areas rode their motorbikes and electric scooters over to take a look upon hearing the news. The elderly residents of Qin family village were also busy. They had asked the dining hall to prepare extra breakfast, and they began selling food directly at the garden entrance. Tickets were 30 each, breakfast was 10 per person. And they also sold some dried fruits and sweets. In just a few days, they made thousands of yuan each. This money was insignificant to Qin Imo, as he had earned back tenfold on the garden, making a cash profit of 600 million. This substantial amount sat in his bank account, generating over $1 million in interest daily, instantly resolving the cash flow issues caused by previous medical expenses for the old master. The village's elderly residents could hardly fathom such a fortune accumulating by the minute. Every morning, they hustle to start their business, and in the evening, after the tourists have left, they stroll around the garden in the village while tidying up. They enjoy the simple life of waking up to collect money and watching the sunset after work. However, the transportation in this village is not convenient. Locals can drive here, but for outsiders, they need to take a high-speed train to the provincial capital, then a bus to a nearby city, and finally switch to a minibus to reach the village. This complicated route dampens the enthusiasm of most tourists, leaving just enough visitors to provide some activity for the elderly in the village. It seems that the presence of outsiders invigorates the older residents. Clearly, they prefer a lively atmosphere. If they are left idle for too long, they might even fall ill from boredom. Qin Imo stroked his chin, contemplating how to enrich the leisure lives of the elderly. At this moment, the construction team that had completed the landscaping returned to work diligently, finally finishing the main part of the commercial street. After the main structure of the shopping mall was renovated, Song Qingfeng immediately ran to Qin Imo to share the good news. Mr. Qin, the commercial street is almost done, and the important 7-story mall has also been completed. How would you like to arrange the next steps? Having spent a year in the village, Song Qingfeng had made quite a profit. Now that the project was nearly finished, he was curious if Qin Imo, the big boss, had any more business opportunities for him. Chapter 183. The first project of the commercial street, is finally completed. Upon hearing this good news, Qin Imo was inspired. He had just been thinking about how to enhance the elderly's lives, and now he had the perfect solution. With the commercial street, he could do anything he wanted. Observing Qin Mo's lively expression, Song Qingfeng thought he might have another opportunity to earn money and stepped forward to ask, Mr. Qin, what do you think is still needed in your village? I can take care of it. Qin Mo understood Song Qingfeng's intentions. After all, a businessman prioritizes profit. However, with most of the construction in the village completed, there were no plans for further major projects. Mr. Song, you've worked hard for our village this past year. Later, I'll prepare a big red envelope for your construction team. At this point, Song Qingfeng realized that there wouldn't be any more business to discuss. Nevertheless, their relationship remained strong. Following Qin Mo had also proven lucrative for him, elevating the construction team's status and competitiveness upon returning to the city. All right, Mr. Qin, if you need anything in the future, just let me know. In the past, while working for other large companies, Song Qingfeng often dealt with delayed payments. But in Qin Mo's case, he sometimes received advances. With such a straightforward client who possessed both strength and integrity, it was essential to maintain contact. After seeing Song Qingfeng off, Qin Mo went to find Qin Tianrui. Previously, he had assigned Qin Tianrui to handle procurement, which had already earned Qin Tianrui a bit of a reputation in the business circle of Danyang City. He could casually pull out dozens of phone numbers of bosses from various industries from his phone, and now these connections were going to come in handy. The news that Qin Family Commercial Street was looking for external investment made both Qin Tianrui and Qin Fengyu excited. The first step planned by Qin Mo was to bring a cinema back to the village. While the elderly in Qin Family Village enjoyed watching the old movie screening teams at the village entrance, it was ultimately outdated technology, and they primarily enjoyed the unique atmosphere. In contrast, cinemas in modern big cities could show 3D films, which the elderly had never experienced before. Qin Mo planned to arrange a screening for everyone. This was simple. Qin Tianrui confidently took on the task. When he previously used Qin Mo's funds to buy furniture in Danyang City, he had happened to meet someone from a chain cinema business at a high-end leather factory. However, Qin Mo pointed out that since the other party was a big brand, they might want to assess the foot traffic before deciding to settle here. Our commercial street has no customers at all right now. Qin Tianrui expressed some concerns. That's easy. Just take them to see how many people come to watch the old movie screenings at our village entrance, Qin Mo suggested. Ever since Qin Mo arranged for the old movie team to come and screen films, people from nearby villages would come to join in the fun every week for the two screenings. The movie team screen was only 2 meters wide, accommodating at most 100 viewers, and they had to fight for a good spot every time. You're right, I didn't think of that, Qin Tianrui said. Feeling reassured by Qin Mo's reminder, he immediately took out his phone to contact the person. A few days passed, and both sides discussed some basic conditions. Opening a cinema here would require significant initial investment, with the equipment alone costing over $1 million. Qin Mo even promised that there would be no rent for the first 6 months, and the equipment costs would be covered under his name, meaning the cinema only needed to handle operations. Once this condition was proposed, the other party's eyes lit up. No rent, and they would get the equipment costs covered. They only needed to manage operations, which would just involve paying a few salaries. If, after 6 months, they couldn't make it work, they could simply leave without any risk. In fact, Qin Mo hoped they would leave after 6 months. What he lacked now was just the experience of operating a cinema. After learning for 6 months, if they left, he could take over directly. By then, the elderly would be able to watch whatever they wanted without worrying about the current film schedules. Once the terms were agreed upon, both sides hit it off. Qin Mo quickly sent the payment, and the other party promptly placed an order for new equipment to be set up. Because Qin Mo was in a hurry and there wasn't enough time to hire people, the cinema team arranged for a few experienced employees from Danyang City to come over. In less than a week, the cinema at Qin Family Village Commercial Street was ready to open. Soon, this news was entrusted to Qin Fengyu to relay to the elderly folks. With plans for everyone to come together this evening to watch the first official movie in Qin Family Village. Isn't there already a snack street at the village entrance? The movie screening team comes every day, and now they've set up a cinema too? I'm not saying anything against Xiao Mo, he has great talent. But he really needs to be taught how to save. What's the point of saving? After a lifetime of savings, do you earn more than what Xiao Mo has as pocket change? Besides, I've heard this cinema doesn't even require money. It seems that Tianrui is the one responsible for attracting investment. Why is it that these young people, like Xiao Mo, don't need any money for anything? The elderly folks, while gathering together, chatted with puzzled expressions. Just a year ago, this piece of land in Qin Family Village was ignored. But ever since Xiao Mo returned and revamped the large land area, so many businesses have come knocking. The small vendors at the snack street can be understood, and they can also understand the need for the village's landscaping for the competition, but now a cinema is just being handed to them? At this moment, Zhang Tingting also joined the elderly folks to gather. She was younger, and since Chin Mo and the others didn't involve her in the investment talks, she still picked up some information living with her brother Qin Fengyu. Zhang Tingting spoke up, "It's not just that it's free. I heard that brother Mo only waived the rent for the first 3 months for the cinema. After 3 months, the cinema still has to pay rent to our Qin family village. Isn't it just turning things upside down?" The elderly folks of Qin family village were amazed, wondering how this land had become treasure troves under Qin Mo's hands when it was nothing but a mess in theirs. "Xiao Mo, what is the difference between this cinema and the screening team? If you set up a cinema, won't that make it harder for the screening team to do business?" Granny Chi, who had been chatting with the screening team recently, had developed some feelings for them. The purchasing power in the nearby villages is average, and the old-fashioned screening team can just about make a living showing films at the village entrance. But if Qin Mo opens a cinema on the commercial street, the crowd will be dispersed, making it tough for the old screening team. Hearing Granny Chi's concerns, Qin Mo smiled and reassured her, "Don't worry, Granny Chi. I've arranged everything properly, and the positioning of the cinema and the old screening team is different. In Qin Mo's plan, the cinema is to be commercial, while the old screening at the village entrance is considered a public service. The two are not contradictory, and the content shown will be completely different. What difference does it make? Isn't a cinema just about putting the screening team's equipment inside? At most, it's just more comfortable, a bit of a hassle." Fifth Grandpa, a supporter of the old screening team, chimed in. Qin Mo smiled at him. "Just don't get scared later, Fifth Grandpa." "Me? Scared? I'm someone who has walked through the gates of hell and am not afraid of anything." Fifth Grandpa had long since healed from his head injury and was now back to being the robust and proud Fifth Grandpa. "Can a movie even scare people? Xiao Mo, you must not show anything scary to Granny Chi. Uncle Wu is not afraid, but Aunt Chi is a bit anxious. If those young folks from Xiao Mo bring something spooky, she might really get scared and can't sleep at night. It's not the kind of jump scares, but something truly shocking." At this moment, Qin Tianrui walked over and gave Qin Mo an okay gesture, indicating that everything was ready. Qin Fengyu also came over with a cardboard box, calling out to the elderly folks in Qin family village, "Everyone come over and get a 3D glasses. You need to wear them for the best experience when watching the movie later." "My eyesight is just fine. Why do I need glasses?" One elder replied. "Yes, I might have a bit of presbyopia and can't see small print, but I can see the screen clearly from a distance." The elderly in Qin family village didn't know what 3D glasses were. As soon as they heard the word glasses, they started grumbling. They felt that Qin Mo was implying they had bad eyesight, which no one would accept. Qin Mo felt a mix of amusement and frustration. "My dear grandparents, these glasses are not to criticize your eyesight. It's because this movie is a 3D blockbuster, and you want to be able to see the effects without wearing them." The movie he prepared for the elders was the groundbreaking classic Avatar. While the storyline might seem cliché to the younger generation, the 3D effects were impressive, making it perfect for broadening the elders' horizons. The elderly were skeptical but took the glasses and entered the cinema. The staff at the cinema knew that the villagers from Qin family village were the landlords of this commercial street and greeted them enthusiastically. Once the movie started, Qin Mo, Qin Tianrui, and Qin Fengyu could hear the elders' gasps of amazement through the walls, far surpassing the experience of watching old-fashioned films. The top-notch IMAX equipment that Qin Mo had invested in could immerse the elders in the world of Avatar. "Bro, how many of these elders do you think have seen a 3D movie before?" Qin Fengyu suddenly asked. Qin Mo thought for a moment and replied, "Probably not many. Without the younger generation bringing them, how would the elders go see a 3D movie?" "Oh," Qin Tianrui sighed suddenly. "My parents never got to watch a 3D movie before they passed away. Do you think I couldn't afford 2 movie tickets back then?" All right. Why are we getting all melancholic?" Qin Mo said. "With the personalities of Uncle Air and Aunt Air, if you drag them to spend over $100 on a movie, they wouldn't be happy about it." Qin Tianrui smiled. Just a moment of sentimentality. "You really thought this through, little bro. This one 3D movie will give our elders in Qin family village more exposure than those from other villages." "Exactly. Technology has advanced for decades, and our elders are still stuck in the village without seeing much. I need to take them out more often to see the world." "Right. They've never even flown in an airplane. Last time Uncle Wu took a helicopter ride, he fainted and didn't get to experience it at all." "Don't say that. I've never been on a plane either." The elderly folks in the village were watching a movie, while 3 young people outside started chatting away. Upon hearing this, Qin Mo felt his eyes rolling. Right, after experiencing a 3D movie, shouldn't they also try flying? After the flight, there would be a trip to the sea. The inland area of Qin family village had never seen the real ocean in the lifetimes of the elderly. "Don't worry. With me, Qin Mo, around, you'll have plenty of flying experiences with your second brother and younger brother." Qin Mo kept this in mind, planning out the arrangements. As they chatted, the elderly folks finished watching the movie and came out, looking radiant, their eyes sparkling with the excitement of children, continuously exchanging their thoughts. "It was amazing. When the phoenix flew toward me, I really thought a divine beast had appeared. So this is what a 3D movie is like. I had heard others talk about it while scrolling through my phone, but it's nowhere near the real experience. They were curious. How is this even possible? How can the phoenix jump out of the screen? Excitedly discussing, Chin-Emo joined in and smiled. Third Grandpa, this film is from the West. And that colorful bird isn't our phoenix. They call it a colorful pterosaur. Pterosaur? It still doesn't sound as majestic as our phoenix. Of course. This time I arranged a Western 3D movie for everyone, but next time, I'll set up some domestic ones for you. Don't just think about the phoenix. I'll show you real dragons and Chilins too. Really? The elderly folks were filled with anticipation. What is the big deal? Even though we don't operate the cinema, we are the landlords, right? We can choose whatever movie we want to watch. Chin-Emo laughed heartily. Upon hearing this, the elderly folks cheered with joy. Having never seen a 3D movie before was one thing, but after experiencing it, they realized that it was nothing like the old-style movies where a curtain was drawn. The excitement among the elderly was so high that they continued discussing it long after leaving the cinema. Seeing this scene, Chin-Emo felt a sense of pride. Which child could bring such joy to the entire village of elderly folks for a night? This was a huge achievement. Qin Tianrui and Qin Fengyu were also beaming with joy. Working alongside Qin Mo for Qin Family Village, they had gradually begun to understand his mindset. Watching the satisfied smiles on the elderly faces and hearing the proud affirmations from the grandmothers brought a sense of fulfillment that was stronger than earning millions. However, what they didn't know was that besides this satisfaction, Chin-Emo would also receive rewards from the system that were never late. Ding! The host rewarded the villagers by allowing them to experience 3D movie viewing, gaining a VIP slot at the yacht club in the provincial city and a high-end yacht. Chapter 185. Agricultural Machinery Fleet. The cinema was just the first setup on the commercial street. Chin-Emo had many more plans for this street in Qin Family Village. A comprehensive shopping mall, restaurants, and leisure squares. With Qin Mo's arrangements for various large-scale investment attractions, the commercial street of Qin Family Village was gradually replacing the county town. In the past, people from neighboring villages would travel to the county town to shop. But now they realized that the environment in the county town was not as good as that in Qin Family Village. Compared to the monotonous shopping malls in the county town, after shopping in Kinjiakin, one can also stroll through the gardens. Even more surprisingly, there is a children's playground planned in this commercial street. For the children from the nearby villages, this is truly a game changer. In the past, they played with mud and small animals in their villages. How could that compare to large slides, claw machines, and arcade games? With the kids constantly wanting to come, parents have no choice but to bring them over every now and then. With children around, Kinjiakin can't help but be lively. The elderly in the community love the hustle and bustle, and Chin-Emo has specifically placed the children's playground next to the activity center, so that the elderly can take a few steps and see a group of kids laughing and playing. The left-behind children in the countryside usually have no one to play with, but upon meeting the friendly elderly in Kinjiakin, they quickly bond. Once the elderly have played enough with the kids, they can turn back to the activity center for a nap. Life is truly joyful. Brother Emo, your idea is brilliant. With the kids being supervised, the elderly have something fun to do, and it also attracts visitors to the commercial street. Qin Tianrui and Qin Fengyu gave Chin-Emo a thumbs up. Chin-Emo smiled happily as well. The only issue is that the elderly women are increasingly nagging us to expand our family. No matter how cute and lively the children from nearby villages are, they are ultimately not from the Qin family. The elderly in Kinjiakin naturally hope to play with the children from their own village. This matter cannot be forced. Chin-Emo can only avoid it, or the traditional village gathering will play out again. As the commercial street developed, more than a month passed, and summer came to an end. At this time, the crops from the surrounding villages had matured, and the visitors to the Kinjiakin commercial street changed as well, prompting the elderly to mobilize. Every year around this time is the busiest for Kinjiakin due to a lack of labor. Although the elderly in Kinjiakin do not cultivate many acres of land, the total area cultivated by the entire village definitely exceeds 100 acres. This time of year is a bit easier, but during harvest, it can be overwhelming for the elderly. Qin Guofu, as the village leader, organized the younger people to provide support. As usual, everyone first finished their own fields before helping the elders, aiming to complete the work in 2 weeks. Otherwise, they would miss the autumn sowing. Other villages have enough labor to plant 3 or even 4 crops in a year, but Kinjiakin traditionally focuses on one main crop. After spring sowing, the summer harvest is often too slow, which can delay the autumn sowing, and if planting is delayed for a few weeks, the crops may not mature before winter, leading to complete frost damage. However, with a few more young people this year, it is expected they can keep up. Although this support team is composed of younger individuals, most of them are over 50, and while those in better health can still be decent labor. Managing over 100 acres is not an easy task. Qin Fengyu and Qin Tianrui had also made early preparations, patting their chests and assuring, "Don't worry. With a few more young people this year, we can manage the fields. By the way, where's Mo? He hasn't run off, has he? That kid has always been clever. Every busy farming season, he seems to disappear. Qin Guofu laughed heartily, ready to go fetch Qin Mo to help out. Just then, a heavy engine sound suddenly echoed from the newly built road at the village entrance. The rumbling low roar was intimidating even from hundreds of meters away. What is going on? As Qin Guofu and the others were about to head to the fields, they were drawn to the village entrance. When they arrived, their eyes nearly popped out in shock. Before them was a complete automated agricultural vehicle fleet. The villagers of Qin Family Village had only seen such things on television. Hearing that in some major agricultural provinces, specialized automated fleets would come to assist during spring planting and autumn harvest. However, these fleets incurred costs. And without hundreds of acres of land, the money earned wouldn't even cover fuel. Little Mo, with our 100 acres, do we really need such a grand setup? Exactly. Bringing in this fleet must cost more in fuel than what we could harvest. It's not just fuel. The drivers don't work for free. This is guaranteed to be a loss. Now that the fleet is at the village entrance, if we let them go, they'll still charge us. Qin Guofu and the others were worried to the point of despair. Bringing a fleet for their little plot of land was indeed excessive. Wait, Little Mo. The harvester can be forgiven, but what's this tilling machine? And what's this irrigation vehicle? Little Mo, this is really wasteful. We could have handled our 100 acres in 2 weeks ourselves. How much would it cost to rent this out? More and more villagers from Qin Family Village gathered around, feeling that it was extravagant to hire an agricultural fleet. Hearing their comments, Qin Mo smiled and said, "There's no rental fee. I bought them." Bought them? The moment Qin Mo said this, Granny Qi was the first to disagree. She stepped forward, intending to tug on Qin Mo's ear, but he dodged with a small step. And the unsuspecting Qin Tianrui became the scapegoat, getting his ear pulled by Granny Qi instead. Granny Qi, it hurts. Qin Tianrui felt this inexplicable disaster was unfair. It's Qin Mo who is extravagant, not me. As the older brother, if you couldn't keep an eye on Little Mo, that's your fault. Granny Qi insisted, while Qin Tianrui looked innocent. How could he keep track of Qin Mo? This little brother had become incredibly capable in just 2 years. Qin Mo secretly laughed at the situation, and even Qin Fengyu and Zhang Tingting were stifling their laughter. After Qin Tianrui cried out in pain for a while, Qin Mo finally explained, Granny Qi, our farmland in Qin Family Village isn't much, so we don't need so much heavy equipment. But there's a sequence to this. It's not that we have less to plant due to insufficient land. It's because we lack labor and have let too much land go to waste. Chapter 186 The Power of Automation. Qin Mo had already thought about using helicopters for pesticide spraying and fertilizer application when the system delivered the helicopter earlier. At that time, he pondered that Qin Family Village only had a little over 100 acres of land, not because the land was unsuitable for farming, but due to a lack of labor. He purchased this automated fleet to leverage technology to enhance productivity. With increased productivity, the thousands of acres of arable land in Qin Family Village could all be utilized. If all the abandoned land in Qin Family Village could be put to use, the fuel costs for maintaining this fleet would be more than covered. As for the drivers, this time everyone missed the opportunity to learn, but in the future, the villagers could learn to drive themselves, saving another expense. Excluding the one-time investment in buying these harvesters and vehicles, the total arable area of Qin Family Village was more than sufficient to cover labor and fuel costs. In the future, with productivity and planning, Qin Family Village would no longer experience the ups and downs of agricultural yields as before. Currently, Qin Family Village is still a poor village. Most of the elderly depend on subsidies for their livelihood. Although this is part of the government's assistance policy, and there's no shame in receiving such funds. If given the opportunity, the villagers would naturally prefer to be self-reliant. No matter how one puts it, Qin Family Village is a rural area. And what kind of village is it if they can't even farm properly? The scene Qin Mo envisioned of reclaiming land and utilizing all arable land clearly resonated more with the simple agricultural mindset of the elderly than building a commercial street for profit. Seeing that the crowd no longer objected, Qin Mo seized the opportunity and waved his hand to signal the automated fleet to head toward the fields. At this moment, Elder Qin Huai was working hard in his small plot of land. Unable to withstand the midday sun, he had chosen to come for harvesting closer to evening. As the setting sun cast its warm orange glow over the vast rice fields, the golden rice ears were bathed in a layer of warmth. Elder Qin, wearing a straw hat, appeared quite small. Oh dear, my old bones, didn't they say they would organize people to help soon? Why haven't they come to my little plot first? Qin Huai, usually quite robust and without major health issues, found that bending over to harvest rice for half an hour had drenched him in sweat. He had to stand on the ridge to rest for a moment, still holding onto the sickle that had accompanied him for decades. Just then, a roaring sound approached, and Qin Huai turned to look, suddenly captivated by a massive convoy slowly making its way from a distance. It was the automated fleet composed of modern agricultural machinery that Qin Mo had purchased. The convoy shone with a metallic luster under the sunlight, and as it drew closer, the rumbling engines shattered the tranquility of the fields. Where did this convoy come from? A hint of confusion flashed in Qin Huai's eyes, followed by disbelief and surprise. He watched as one harvester after another rolled onto his rice field without hesitation. Resembling gigantic steel beasts, opening their jaws lined with sharp teeth, effortlessly devouring swathes of rice paddies. The rice that was fed into the machine quickly reappeared, pouring out like raindrops from the back of the machine, directly falling into the grain trucks that followed closely behind. The whole process was smooth and efficient. Wow. Qin Huai understood the power of machinery. He once had a hand-pushed harvester, but how could that compare to the combine harvester that Qin Mo bought for over $1 million? Qin Huai's shocked gaze hadn't lasted long before half of his rice field was already harvested. At this moment, Qin Mo and the others, who had been following the convoy, rushed over. Except for Qin Mo, who had anticipated this, the others were all dumbfounded by the sight of the steel giant working in Qin Huai's rice field. The seventh grandma, who had just scolded Qin Mo for being wasteful, now looked on in shock and disbelief. She had never seen such a spectacular harvesting scene. The memory of bending over and laboriously cutting grain with a sickle stood in stark contrast to the almost magical automated operation before her. Qin Huai snapped back to reality first, looked at the old sickle in his hand, and threw it to the ground, shouting at Qin Mo, "Xiao Mo, you must have done this, right?" Qin Mo grinned proudly and said, "Hey, how about it, third grandpa? Look how advanced the technology is now. It used to take 7 or 8 of us a whole day to harvest an acre, but now it seems like it can be done in just 20 minutes. This is the power of technology." Qin Guofu, the village secretary, was particularly moved by the scene before him. In the past, during the autumn harvest, he would mobilize the whole village to help, and it would take at least 2 to 3 weeks to finish. Now, with the combined harvester in action, that acre of land was nearly done. At this speed, it seemed that by tomorrow morning, all the rice fields in the village could be harvested. While everyone was still in shock, Qin Mo gave the drivers of the convoy a second instruction. They quickly finished harvesting the rice field of his third grandpa, and then the next tilling machine rolled in. The tilling work that used to tire an old ox for weeks was completed in less than 20 minutes by the massive rotating blades of the tilling machine. Then, the seeders started operating, and the prepared wheat seedlings stood up in the ground in quick succession. Everyone felt dazzled, and when they came back to their senses, Qin Huai's acre of rice field had already been harvested and replanted with wheat seedlings. So fast. The elderly who had farmed their whole lives now doubted whether they had been farming real fields before. In the past, harvesting and replanting would take a month. Now, with this automated convoy, it seemed to be completed in less than 2 hours. With such efficiency, what Qin Mo had said about reclaiming all the wasteland in Qin Family Village was completely feasible. Quick, let the convoy come to my house and give it a try. I want to see if it's difficult to operate this machine. Can I give it a go myself? The uncles who still had energy were eager to try. They had driven tractors before and understood basic car driving. These automated devices were not complicated to operate, just a matter of pressing a few buttons on the control panel. Qin Mo originally planned to have the more capable villagers learn how to operate these machines. The elderly were excluded, but people like Uncle Fu Gua could definitely learn. Thinking of this, Qin Mo smiled and replied, "Of course, we can go to your field, Uncle Jianjun. You can sit in the passenger seat and let the driver teach you how to operate it." These drivers were not ordinary. They were technical staff from the agricultural machinery manufacturers. Their visit today was not only to showcase the impressive automated farming equipment to the villagers, but also to teach them how to use it. This service was included in the cost Qin Mo paid for the equipment. Chapter 187. Startling the neighbors after witnessing the power of automated agricultural machines. The enthusiasm for learning among the uncles in Qin Family Village was exceptionally high. Qin Guofu, as the village secretary with basic driving skills, became a model student, spending nearly all his time over the past few days learning alongside the drivers. By the third day, Qin Guofu had mastered the operation of these automated devices. Early that morning, he was already driving the tiller, working in a field that had been abandoned for a long time. After finishing with the tiller, he moved on to the seed drill, followed by the irrigation machine and fertilizing. With this combination of tasks, Qin Guofu managed to cultivate 3 acres of land in just one morning, an efficiency that was astonishing. Meanwhile, visitors from neighboring villages shopping in the commercial street of Qin Family Village also noticed this situation. One woman who had come to the amusement park with her child stealthily walked around the edge of the fields in Qin Family Village. After a quick look, she was completely stunned. Their village had not even finished harvesting, yet the second crop had already been planted in over 100 acres in Qin Family Village. Their village had far more young laborers compared to Qin Family Village. Traditionally, they would always finish their work first each year. But this year, while they were still harvesting their crops, Qin Family Village had already planted a new batch. Seeing this, the woman hurried back to her village to spread the news. The people of Wang Village were skeptical. How is that possible? How many people are there in Qin Family Village? Excluding the elderly, are there even enough left? This year, perhaps there were a few more young people from Qin Mo, but that was only 2 or 3. Although Qin Family Village didn't have much land. Surely they had around 100 acres. Could they have finished everything with just the old and weak? The people of Wang Village pressed the woman for more information. She shook her head repeatedly, insisting, it's not just that they've finished. I saw that they've already planted the second round of seedlings for the fall. How could this be? The people of Wang Village were even more doubtful. The harvested fields were filled with weeds and leftover rice stalks. Without clearing them, they couldn't plant new seedlings. 100 acres? Even if the people of Wang Village mobilized, it would take several days just to plow the land. With the harvest season being similar across the region, they knew that Qin Family Village couldn't possibly be faster than them. You must be talking nonsense, they said. You don't believe it? Come take a look with me. The woman was getting anxious. How could there be any fake when she was seeing it with her own eyes? The farmers from the surrounding villages had been cultivating the land for decades, and if someone suddenly brought in a sci-fi version of farming, it would be hard for them to believe. Hearing the woman's words, they hopped on their motorcycles and electric bikes and set off. A large group of them arrived at the village, but before they even entered, the sound of their motorcycle engines was drowned out by a tremendous roar. Everyone was startled, thinking some disaster had struck. Once they calmed down and listened closely, they realized the booming noise was coming from above. They looked up at the sky and saw a helicopter equipped with a spraying device flying at low altitude. The powerful rotor blades stirred up the air, causing the clothes of the villagers below to flap wildly. And then they saw the helicopter heading towards the fields of the village, beginning to spray something. What the heck? Is that helicopter fertilizing? The villagers were dumbfounded. The speed at which the helicopter was spraying fertilizer was astonishing. In just one pass, it covered hundreds of meters of farmland. The villagers exchanged glances, and finally, someone snapped back to reality and started their motorcycle to continue towards the fields. When they arrived, they were once again astonished. This was no backward little village. It looked like a filming site for a Transformers movie. Several giant vehicles, standing 4 to 5 meters tall, were working in the fields. And there was a helicopter assisting them. Ridiculously, drones were flying around, coordinating everything from above. This modern agricultural production resembled a special forces operation. What the woman had said earlier was now beyond disbelief. Because the land within a radius of hundreds of meters, which had been abandoned farmland, had been completely revitalized. The villagers from the neighboring area had no idea when the villagers of this place had started to cultivate again, but the land in front of them was now well maintained. An efficient rice transplanting machine was currently at work, planting 80 seedlings in a single rotation of its wheels, with precision and efficiency that could not be matched by human hands. In just a few minutes of the villagers from the neighboring area being dumbfounded, the previously barren land had sprouted a large area of new seedlings. Given the speed, it was entirely reasonable that the woman had mentioned the second round of planting had already been completed. An elderly man from the neighboring village, watching in disbelief, suddenly became furious. He yelled at the edge of the field, "You people from this village are not being fair. You rented an automated fleet and aren't helping us locals?" Upon hearing this, others from the neighboring village chimed in. "Yeah, in previous years when we had time, didn't we come help you harvest?" This village was notoriously short on labor, and neighboring villagers would come over to lend a hand after finishing their own farm work. However, the help was never seamless. There were even instances where a local had been pressured by the villagers from the neighboring area during busy farming seasons, which led to minor conflicts. The neighboring villagers weren't bad people, but during their help, they would often bring up the declining population of this village to provoke some of their locals, which led to previous misunderstandings. At this moment, Qin Huai saw a group of people from Wang Village who had come to watch the excitement, and he walked over with a smile. "Oh, folks from Wang Village. You all came quite early this year. Have you finished your farming tasks?" Qin Huai asked on purpose, causing a slight awkwardness among the people from Wang Village. He laughed heartily and continued, "Even if you finish, we need your help this year. Xiao Mo and the kids from Tianrui have directly bought an automated fleet to assist us. The efficiency is astonishing." As he spoke, he pointed towards the fields. Aside from a few who understood how to drive, the younger ones from Qin Mo's group were eager to learn how to operate the automated vehicles as well. For them, it was just about remembering the buttons on the control panel. Driving these machines was no different from regular driving and posed no difficulty. They were currently among those steel beasts, excitedly watching as new seedlings sprang up from the ground. In the time it took Qin Huai to say a few words, they had already managed to cover dozens of meters. Qin Mo was also delighted. In the past, he would come back to help during busy farming seasons, but that experience was only tiring. Now, it was all about satisfaction. Chapter 188. Agricultural Automation. Watching Qin Mo and the others operate the equipment, The once abandoned fertile land of Qin Family Village was being cultivated again. The elderly residents of Qin Family Village were immensely pleased. Which farmer wouldn't want to see their village's land flourishing? The people from Wang Village, however, had mixed feelings. Envy, jealousy, and resentment all rolled into one. In the end, the village chief, being a bit bolder, asked again, "Old Qin, once you're done over there, could you send the fleet to help us out? With this efficiency, one fleet can do the work of hundreds of us in a week." Qin Huai shook his head. "Old Wang, it's not that I don't want to help you out. We just don't have the time." Xiaomo said, "We want to cultivate over 1,000 acres this year." Over 1,000 acres? The people from Wang Village were shocked. What does that even mean? Qin Family Village has less than 100 households now. Does that mean each household would be managing 10 acres? Although the people from Wang Village didn't have much concept of these figures, they understood how terrifying that number was based on decades of common sense. Qin Mo had learned a bit about this while discussing equipment with the factory owner. In developed countries, with the help of automated equipment, the average person can manage over 10 acres, and in places like Australia, where land is vast and population sparse, individuals can work up to 30 acres. Qin Mo was aiming for that target. Once he finished cultivating the previously abandoned land of Qin Family Village, he could even start renting farmland from nearby villages to manage, which was his long-term plan for agriculture in Qin Family Village. He invested in such expensive equipment and started using helicopters for fertilization, all for the sake of efficient, automated agricultural production. The people from Wang Village listened to Qin Huai describing Qin Mo's grand plans, and for a moment, they were stunned. With their efficiency-wielding sickles compared to these machines, they could see they were on a path to obsolescence. They exerted themselves to the limit, managing to harvest twice a year, while Qin Mo, with automation, could potentially achieve 4 or 5 harvests in the same time frame, making the profit comparison impossible. "This is the power of technology," the villagers of Wangsuan said with envy. No, it should be the strength of that kid, Qin Mo," said Qin Huai with a smile, while the elderly nearby laughed heartily. Qin Huai's words were indeed correct, without Qin Mo's boldness. Knowing how impressive these automated devices are would be of no use. Buying millions worth of equipment all at once. Not to mention the elderly folks in Qin Village lacking such courage. Even the people from Wangsuan wouldn't dare to do so. Sigh. Upon seeing the bustling scene, the people of Wangsuan were left with only a sense of bitterness in their hearts. The village head led the group back, thinking about how he would soon have to take that old sickle to the fields to harvest crops. The stark contrast truly left the people of Wangsuan feeling disheartened. They immediately thought of their own children. Why is it that the young people from Wangsuan, who are about the same age as Qin Mo, do not explore these high-tech aids? They could at least get a harvester to help out, not to mention helicopters for fertilizing and spraying pesticides. Comparing people really is infuriating. In less than a month, Qin Mo seized the opportunity during the autumn harvest and reactivated over 1,000 acres of wasteland in Qin Village. Once the work was completed, Qin Mo and a few young people felt a tremendous sense of satisfaction. With just a few automated farming vehicles, they accomplished what would have required the effort of hundreds of people. It's hard to describe that feeling without experiencing it firsthand. In ancient times, this would surely be seen as a miracle. Impressive indeed. Zhang Tingting, being young and without a driver's license, naturally had no part in the driving work. However, she had been watching by the fields, witnessing firsthand the transformation from wasteland to fertile land, from wild grass to new seedlings. Hee. Qin Fengyu chuckled proudly, and then turned to Qin Mo. "But brother Mo, while these automated devices are impressive for farming, what about the harvest later? This autumn, Qin Mo mainly planted wheat. With such a large area, the harvest could yield over 1 million pounds of wheat, enough for the 100 households in Qin Village to eat for a lifetime. That is not a problem. We can just sell it on the market. But you reminded me. With these automated devices, the agricultural yield in Qin Village will be substantial, and those grain purchasing enterprises outside will end up losing a lot of money. Businesses need to drive down prices. When those purchasing enterprises see the enormous quantity of wheat planted by Qin Mo, they will definitely push the price down significantly when it's harvest time next year." Qin Mo stroked his chin. "Why not simply build our own factory, process it into flour, and sell it directly?" Huh. Qin Tianrui was startled. "Whoa, calm down, little brother. You just got the farmland with the newly bought agricultural machines, and you're already thinking about a flour factory? A flour factory has downstream needs too. You're not thinking about starting a sales company to sell it, are you?" Haha. "No rush, we'll take it step by step." Qin Mo actually had this plan in mind. The next step in agricultural automation is naturally a complete agricultural system. By controlling everything from the source, the quality and quantity of agricultural products can be managed, and it might just turn into a viable business. However, it was still too early for the harvest season, and Qin Mo didn't need to rush into this matter. He first returned to his home to check the wave of rewards sent by the system. Ding. The host contributes to the community by purchasing automated farming machinery for Qin Family Village, receiving a piece of Imperial Green Jade Raw Stone. Ding. The host contributes to the community by reclaiming 1,000 acres of farmland for Qin Family Village, receiving a set of yellow diamond jewelry. Ding. The host contributes to the community by achieving full agricultural automation for Qin Family Village, receiving a ferry. This time, the rewards were not just a batch. They appeared continuously as Qin Mo kept farming. He had already become accustomed to gems and money, but he was particularly excited when he saw the ferry. A few days ago, he had thought about how the elderly people in Qin Family Village had never seen the sea or flown on a plane.